Yes, we are ready to go.
Okay, 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. On the roll call, I've got everybody except I haven't seen Laura or Kurt. Are either one of those, everybody else like I've seen. So is Laura Johnson out there or Kurt?
Kurt Stubstead, right?
I don't see
Yeah.
Kurt Stubstead or Laura on here.
Okay, is Kurt there? I'm still not sure.
Kurt Stubstead or Kurt Shervin?
Shervin's here, but Stubstead.
No.
Okay, so we've got 9/11, so we have quorum. So about Rita, has she got a list of the guests that are attending?
Laura's here.
Oh, Laura is
Laura's
here.
Okay, got Laura.
Chair, all guests have signed in.
Okay, you got them all signed in, Rita? Oh, Kurt Stubstead is there, huh? Got everybody.
Microphone is on.
Okay, Jenny, thank you.
We have one person identified just as me on here. If they could unmute and state their name.
Did me hear that? Me, did you, state your name?
Well, I guess we'll just put me.
Well, does he come up? All right, that being said, let's go on. Let's start. We have a lot to cover. The virtual meeting rules. Matt, could you go over there for those, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thanks everyone for attending our April Planning Commission meeting. In order to kind of keep things running smoothly as possible, just a few guidelines for our virtual participants and in-person participants as well. First, if you have a microphone, please mute it unless you're directed by the chair to speak. How the public hearing process will go is the chair will state the case to be heard. We'll call upon the planning director and myself to present the staff report. The Planning Commission will then have an opportunity to ask the staff about the proposal, and then the chair will ask if the applicant wishes to speak. The Planning Commission can ask questions to the applicant about the proposal, and then members of the public, once the chair asks for comments, shall be permitted to address the Planning Commission about the proposal. There is a 3-minute limit unless permitted by the chair or by a vote of the Planning Commission. Anyone online, any inappropriate, obscene comments will be removed from the meeting. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Matt. Approval of agenda. Has
So
everybody got a copy of the agenda for this evening? And if they do, is there any changes or corrections or motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Ezra.
Up as far as it goes.
And also second.
Okay, we got a motion and second to approve the agenda. We'll go through and vote. Take off the roll sheet. Kurt Sherbin,
Aye.
Ezra,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Steve, Lindus,
Yes.
and Joel.
Aye.
Kurt, Stubstead. Saw his name out there. Was it on there? Right there. Must be muted. Steve Mortensen,
Aye.
the agenda is approved as presented. Approval of the minutes from the March 16th, 2021 meeting. Has everybody got a copy? Had a chance to read those, and we were a little quick on the gun last time. Is there any changes? Anybody see any?
Bill,
Yes?
this is Jenny. The only thing I would note is it references the courthouse as the Clay County Justice Center, and that has not been a name change yet, so it needs to be adjusted to the Clay County Courthouse.
Okay. Okay. I missed that. Where's that one at?
It's at the very end when we talked about the new government center and offices being there, but the commission will continue to meet at the courthouse. It says Justice Center.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny. With that correction being made, is there a motion to approve?
Lindos moves approval.
Second, Ezra.
Okay, we got a motion to approve and a second to approve the approval of the notes from last month. All those in favor say aye. Kurt Sherbin,
Aye.
Ezra,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Joel,
Aye.
Kurt, and Steve.
Aye.
Okay. Citizens to be heard. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak to the commission on something that is not on the agenda? Speak to the board of something that is not on the agenda for the night. Hearing no one, let's start with the public hearing number one. Kelly Erdman, request for conditional use permit. The applicant is seeking approval of a conditional use permit for a private storage building in the Special Protection Shoreland Zone District Parcel 24.027.1400, the southeast quarter of the northeast quarter, Section 27, Township 138N, Range 44W, Park Township. Is there a motion to open public hearing?
So move, Ezra.
Is there a second?
Motion seconds.
We have a motion and a second to open the public meeting. Let's vote. Kurt? Sherbin?
Aye. Aye.
Ezra?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye.
Steve Lindus?
Aye.
Joel Hildebrand?
Aye.
Kurt Stubstead? And Steve Mortensen. Public
Aye.
hearing is now open. Matt, could you please fill us in on the details of this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This application is for a conditional use permit for a private storage building, so not a commercial storage building, but a private storage building for personal use in the Special Protection Shoreland District. In this zoning district, if you're going to have a building that is not a residence or a dwelling, you need to have a conditional use permit in the Shoreland zoning district. So give you a little idea about where this is located. So this is just east and south and east of the Steam Threshers Reunion property and on north of Lake Laura. So Lake Laura is the lake whose shoreland zoning district this property is in. The proposed location of this storage unit is kind of just to, it's kind of in this area here. You can see on my screen just north of 102nd Avenue South. The applicant, the property is owned by the Bang Family Revocable Living Trust, and the applicant, Kelly Erdman, if the CUP is approved, his plan is to purchase a roughly plus or minus 3 acre lot from out of this parcel from Bruce Bang. And talking with the applicant before, I can kind of show you this here, kind of what that looks like. So it's 3.6 acres. That is the minimum size that's required in this zoning district for a non-riparian shoreland parcel. So the parcel that he's proposing to create would be conforming to the shoreland district. Standards in the code. There's 10 standards in the development code, kind of guiding this use, and you can see them here. Can't be used as a residence, can't be serviced with sewer or water, can be placed on a temporary or permanent foundation. There's some size limitations. It has to meet all the applicable setbacks. Can't be used to house or support animals. Can't be used for any commercial and or business, including storage of materials, vehicles, or other items for commercial or business purposes. This one's kind of a head scratcher to me, maybe located in shoreland districts only. And then it just has to be of a design and workmanship consistent with the surrounding area. And the applicant intends to use this as essentially a storage building for hunting equipment, ice fishing type equipment, stuff that he can store when he's on his way out to the lakes, or other parts of Minnesota. And I can let him elaborate on that when it's his time. But from a staff perspective, recommend approving this request simply because there's a residence, a couple residences to the west, one to the east. This building it'd be on the opposite side from the lake of a county road. An approach would be very easy to put in. I have some pictures of the site I can pull up. Thought I did. One sec. Yeah, so this is looking at the site, looking to the northeast. There's the lake. There's the 102nd Avenue. That's basically it. That's the site. Kind of right now, it's just kind of used. It's just kind of fallow ground right now at this point. So, any questions for me at all?
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra. I have a question
Yes.
for Matt. With the setback of that being 3.6 acres for the setback off that road, wherever that is, there enough room to build the shed? For the
Yes.
setback off the road?
Yep. You would have to be 20 feet from the road right away.
That's all it is there?
Yep.
All right.
Yep. That's kind of one of the reasons why the minimum lot size I think is a little bit, and actually the minimum lot size for a non-riparian parcel So that's a parcel that would be on the other side of a road or not directly adjoining or having any lake shoreline or river shoreline. I think one of the reasons why it's a little bigger, and this is just speculation on my part, is to accommodate outbuildings or garages or things like that. Whereas the minimum lot size on a riparian parcel is about 1.5 acres smaller.
I have a question for you, Matt. It said the maximum size is 5% of the lot size. Now that's 5%. That means the building, any concrete pads and approaches, driveway, is that all considered 5% of that?
No, it is not. But any and all of that would have to fall under that 25% impervious surface standard.
25%, okay. So
So
this
the-
building could be quite large.
So it couldn't include, the driveway or, any other impervious surface. And in a shoreline district, we do consider any gravel approaches or gravel driveways to be impervious surface according to our code.
Okay, I asked that question so when you get to the applicant, he will at least know that
Yep.
ahead of time,
Yep.
so that there's don't come back for a variance later.
Yep. And that's something I go through in the building permit process for every applicant with a proposed project in the shoreland zoning district.
There's don't come back for a variance later.
Yep. And that's something
Okay, yeah. Thanks for that, Matt.
Yep.
Anybody else on the board have questions for Matt? Any other questions for Matt? We'll go to the applicant. Would the applicant like to speak to the board on his proposal at this time?
Did I explain it
It's
well
good.
enough? The applicant
Is this
says
a-
I did a good enough job in explaining it, so
Okay.
hopefully he doesn't
Is the
regret
applicant
it.
Not going to speak? Okay, what about public? Is it anybody in the audience that wants to speak for or against this proposal? Anybody for or against the application? Hearing none, is there anybody who wants to make a motion to close the public hearing?
So move, Ezra.
To close public hearing.
This is Andrea. I'll second to close.
So we've got a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Kurt,
Aye.
Ezra,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Joel. Aye. Kurt, Stopstead? I'm still hopeful. And Steve?
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed.
Excuse
With
me,
that,
Chair.
we should go through the facts and findings before we do anything else.
I don't know who made the motion.
For
There
Erdman,
was
let's
two
see,
people that made it.
CUP. Effective use, in granting an interim use permit. Is this an interim or this is for a conditional?
Mr. Chair,
Gonna
this
be the
is for
same
a
thing?
conditional.
Okay. The planning commission shall consider the effect of the proposed use upon the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of occupants and surrounding lands, existing and anticipated land uses, traffic conditions, including parking facilities, and the effect on agricultural use and values of property and scenic views in the surrounding area, and the effect of the proposed use in existing comprehensive plans. Speak up if you have any problems with them, please. The interim use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, and not substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity. Establishment of the permit will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding vacant property for uses predominant in the area. Utilities, access roads, off-street parking, adequate measures will have been or will be taken to provide utilities, access roads, drainage, and off-street parking and loading spaces. That'd be not applicable, I don't think. Adequate measures have been taken or will be taken to control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, water pollution, and soil erosion, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. Public services, the use will not create an excessive burden on parks, schools, water supplies, sewers, and other public utilities or facilities or utilities which serve or are proposed to serve the area. The use will be sufficiently compatible separated by distance or screening from adjacent agricultural zones and used land, so that the existing homes will not be depreciated and there will not be deterrence to agricultural use of said land. The structure and site shall have an appearance that will not have an adverse effect on adjacent residential properties. The use is, in the opinion of the Planning Commission, reasonably related to the overall needs of the district and to the existing land use. In the case of floodplains, which is not, we'll skip that. Consistency with ordinance, the use is consistent with the purposes of this ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan, if any, the township or city or county. The use will not cause traffic hazards or congestion, and it is not in a floodplain area. Skip that one. Existing businesses nearby will not be adversely affected because of curtailment of customer trade brought about by intrusion of noise, glare, or general unsightliness. Now, is there any discussion? Anybody have any comments? Moment of discussion before we do anything else now. Anybody have any comments? For or against, board? Hearing none, does anybody want to make a motion one way or the other?
This is Mark. I'll make a motion to pass the conditional use.
This is Jenny, I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to issue the permit. All those in favor say aye. Kurt Shervin,
Aye.
Ezra,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Joel,
Aye.
Kurt Stubstead, Steve Mortensen.
Aye.
We'll go on to the second public hearing. Knife River Materials request for an interim use permit. The applicant is seeking approval of an interim use permit to allow a 25-acre expansion of a 39-acre gravel mining operation on parcel 24.036.2500 in the north half of the northwest quarter of section 36, township 138N, range 44W, Park Township. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So move, Ezra.
Excuse me?
So move, Ezra.
Okay,
Dawson, second.
okay. All those in favor say aye. Kurt,
Aye.
Ezra,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and Joel.
Aye.
Kurt? Steve?
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. Matt, could you fill us in on this one, please?
Yeah, this is a IUP request from Knife River Materials for a 25 acre gravel pit expansion on Bruce Bang's property. It's known as the Bang Pit. Some policy considerations from our comprehensive plan that relate to this request, looking at recognizing and supporting agricultural character of the county in all planning efforts, planning land uses, and implement standards to minimize land use conflicts, making sure that related to this, policies 3 and 4 are particularly pertinent, requiring adequate buffering, landscaping for new mining operations when adjacent to existing residential areas, as well as when an existing operation expands or is substantially modified, and require phased-end use reclamation plans as a condition for a gravel mining permit so that areas are reclaimed as they are done being mined. And then natural resources goal, policy 19 is to balance the preservation of native prairie areas within mining of the county's gravel resources. So this proposal is located in a very similar area to our last public hearing, in the southeast corner of Clay County. It's a 282 acre parcel. The use of it is currently used for gravel mining. And so this subject property is zoned agricultural general and resource protection aggregate. And there is some resource protection biological on the site as well. So this proposed use for mining is allowable in the RP Ag and the Ag General as interim uses, but not in the RP Bio District without an environmental assessment worksheet. So some background on the site. It was originally granted a CUP for mining and an asphalt hot mix plant in 2009. The mining portion of this was for 35 acres. Between 2011 and 2013, it appears that at least 60 acres were excavated, so that would be exceeding the original 35 acre permit by 25 acres. And then in 2014 through 2017, 25 acres were reclaimed. Knife River was granted an IUP in 2015 to mine an additional 39 acres. And so that would bring the total up to, from 35 and 39 would be, what, 70, 72, 74, sorry, thanks Ezra. And this permit expired at the end of 2020. So you can I'm gonna kind of go through the pit here. So this is in 2009. It's around 30 acres. You can see here kind of in the southwest corner of the parcel. There is some RP Bio incursion into the RP Bio zoning district. I will note though that in the 2009 CUP, there was nothing that restricted or limited that from happening, and likely that was allowed at the time as an allowable use in that zoning district. Then in 2013, the pit's looking at approximately 60 acres in size, kind of spreading north and then going to the east. So in 2015, later on, the pit was approximately 63 acres, with 38 acres not reclaimed. You can see some early stages of reclamation in the east extent of the pit. And then in 2017, the pit was approximately 46 acres and kind of remains that way to this day, approximately 46 acres. My understanding is that there hasn't been much, if any, material that's come out of this pit in the past few years. So the request is to open up a 25-acre expansion on the north end of the property, looking to mine for various rock, sand, and gravel products for use in their hot mix asphalt plant that they're going to be asking for in the next public hearing, as well as concrete and road bases. The plan for the mine is it'll occur in 2 stages. There's a stage 1, 12 acres, and that's from 2021 to 2023, and then stage 2 is around 13 acres from 2023 to 2025. The phasing map kind of shows the approximate final depth at 50 feet, but that could be subject to change based on materials found. DNR puts the water table at anywhere from 10 to 30 feet, though it certainly could be more. Crushing, screening, stockpiling, washing will occur on site, and the applicant is good on all of their state permits. They have them all. They're in compliance with all of those. Looks like that 2 to 4 employees would work on the site at any given time. They're looking for operating hours and dates from January to December, Monday through Saturday. 24, and that shouldn't say 24/7, should just say 24 hours a day for 5 years. And so here's a look at kind of their proposed mining areas. You can see stage 1 just to the north of the current pit. And then stage 2 is just to the east of that. So this is kind of what the area looks like right now. It looks like it was cropped last year or cultivated last year. So this is looking at the proposed site to the east. And here you can see with all the setbacks, we've got the 100-foot property line buffer. There's a 200-foot road buffer. There is a utility line that runs across the northern and western part of the property, kind of connecting the series of wind towers along the north. And the company that operates those lines has their own setback for that. The only thing in our code, it says you can't have a wind tower in the middle of a gravel pit. Haul route, they're looking at going south on 290th Street and then on 120th Avenue, County Road 6, I believe. Get that right? All right. Either into Becker County or west toward the FM area. This is probably one of the busier gravel hauling routes in the entire county. A lot of material coming from Becker County, and so I might have someone from the highway department comment on that as well. So you can see the map on the left has the DNR's depth to water table estimate. Kind of varies. This is a very hilly area, so I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't greater than what's been estimated, just because of the resolution of the data collected on the depth of the water table. In terms of biodiversity and wetlands, there aren't really any wetlands in the site or within a mile of the site. And then the area to the south and south and east, excuse me, is native prairie, and it's has a Minnesota Biological Survey site of biodiversity significance of moderate, so middle of the road. So mitigation, applicant plans to do interior sloping to control runoff, berming the exterior portion of the mine, and then stabilizing any unstable soils with perennial vegetative cover. Reclamation is to occur in 2 stages. Stage 1 will be reclaimed in 2023 and stage 2 in 2025. The slopes will have, the sides of the pit will have a 3-to-1 slope. The bottom will be leveled, and then any stored topsoil will be placed over the disturbed area. Applicant is not expecting or anticipating any post-reclamation water features. Kind of leads me to believe that they won't be hitting that water table. If that's the plan. So and then return the plan is to return it to pasture. And in this image, you can kind of see You've got that tilled area in the foreground. In the background is the reclaimed area, that part of that 25 acres. So that in the background used to be a gravel pit at one point, and that's what it's looking like today. So a few recommendations, kind of four that I see. You could approve the request for the entire 25 acres. You could approve the request for stage 1 and require a new IUP in 2023. And let me just say that this is solely based on the clear exceedance of the 2009 CUP from, you get 35 acres permitted and you end up opening up 60 acres at one time. That's, almost double in size. And I'm not sure why it was never brought up or mentioned in the 2015 IUP hearing for this same pit. That looked in the minutes and that never seemed to come up. So you could approve the request for stage 1 and then require a new IUP for stage 2 in 2023. Might be a good way to kind of keep things in check and see how things are going with the first stage. You could also approve the request for 25 acres and then have planning and zoning inspect when stage 1 is done, delineate what the pit is, can provide a report to the planning commission just to let you know before stage 2 begins. Or you could, even though in this case, because of the way that Minnesota environmental rules work, they technically don't have to do a mandatory EAW, but the Clay County is the responsible government unit in this case. You can always require the applicant to complete a discretionary EAW. It's really up to you. The conditions are essentially the same as the 2015 IUP. If you so decide to approve this IUP today. Operate within the provisions of the land development ordinance, especially the specific setbacks. No part of that mining operation shall take place in the resource protection biological overlay zone or within 100 feet of this zone. Operator shall control dust and provide necessary maintenance on all gravel and haul roads. This is especially important because there is a residence just on the south on 290th Street. They also operate a kennel out of that as well. And so I didn't hear from them at all as part of this request. But I think, that's something to keep in mind, that to be a good neighbors and make sure that dust in the road is good. So the operator basically has already fulfilled number 4, providing proof of all the state permits. Operations must comply with all provisions of the Wetland Conservation Act. Don't see that being an issue really for this mine. This is where, your decision making could come more into play, is depending on how many acres you would want to permit. Operator must post a reclamation bond of $4,000 per acre. That was the number that was provided by the applicant in terms of the cost for reclamation at this site. And then the operator shall reclaim mined out areas as mining activities progress, either ceding to native prairie grasses or a landowner's specification. Operator shall provide parking, screening, lighting, drainage, portable sewage facilities consistent with county regulations. And there's a second page of conditions. Detailed mining plan, they, for the most part, have fulfilled this one. Obtain a DNR appropriation of public waters permit. I think they actually already have this. And then operations. So April 1st through November 15th, going from, excuse me, losing my voice here, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And then if there is a need to operate 24/7 or beyond the stated hours, they would need to notify the planning office, give the reason, length of time, so we can just notify any impacted property owners about that. And that's been, pretty standard in terms of IUP permits. We don't do blanket 24/7 mining permits anymore. I know that's been the case in the past, but that's no longer the case. And then permit shall expire, you either got that 2023 timeline, you got the 2026 timeline, the 5-year timeline. It's really up to you. Any questions for me at all?
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra. I have a question for Matt.
Go ahead, Ezra.
Who applied for the permit in 2009? Was it Knife River?
Yes.
That's all I have for right now.
Bill, this is Steve. I have a question for Matt.
Go ahead.
Matt, the environmental review would have been automatically required if they had actually asked for permission to mine the 63 acres, right?
Yes.
And so it's the only reason why it's not automatically triggered is because there was a essentially time delay, right?
Yeah, essentially in the state of Minnesota has a 3-year look back rule, basically saying if a project is older than 3 years, any expansion that meets the current triggering thresholds for an EAW is not required by state rules to have an EAW completed.
But expanding it to another 12 acres would exceed the mined area, minus all the reclaimed. That would exceed 40 acres, right? So if we give an interim use permit to mine another 12 acres, that's going to exceed in aggregate 40 acres.
Yes, it is, and it's just that with that 3-year look back rule, the only acres that you would look at are the newly added acres. So if this request was for like 40 acres expansion, that would automatically trigger an EAW. So, but again, discretionary EAWs are an option that this body has.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Anybody else have a questions for Matt? A question or questions?
Did you hear anything? Mr. Chair, this is Ezra. I have a question for Matt.
Okay.
Did you hear anything from DNR?
I did not hear anything from DNR.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I guess my only question, I talked to Matt earlier, and this is going to be something for the applicant too, is what was the original 39 acres? Where was the original 39 acres? And that's, I guess, for whatever reason, I'm just interested in what the original 39 would be. Would it be all the way to the top there? How much is left, did you say there now, Matt?
Right now, not counting the reclaimed portion on the east, it looks like there's about 46 acres that is open. Considered to be an open pit.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Any other questions for Matt, the staff? Hearing none, would the applicant like to speak to the board at this time? Would the applicant like to speak to the board at this time?
Yes, please.
Go ahead. State your name.
My name is Steph Baskard for Knife River Materials, Environmental Manager.
Thank you.
If you're ready. I just had a couple comments because I'm sure you got a lot of questions, and that's probably more important for why I'm up here. But the chairman had mentioned about the original 39 acres or whatever. I believe that was an IUP that was submitted by another person in our company in 2009, with Tim Magnuson being the director for the planning and zoning for Clay County. And as we progressed to 2015 and expanded, whether there was a misinterpretation or interpretation between Tim Magnuson and myself and Knife River, because Bruce Bang and us wanted that, go back one, Matt. That original section there was basically mined out. It's not very deep in that area, just on the north portion of that, but maybe the top 10 acres. And the rest is storage and staging area for the stockpiles and the operation of our asphalt plant. So there's, like I said, the agreements we kind of had was those are already reclaimed to the point of storage, using it for the asphalt plant and not actually be mined. That's where we continued on to the next section of acres that we used, and with Clay County asking us to use that up and then reclaim it as soon as we were done with it to stay under the 39 acre total. Another thing that was slightly brought up on the AW, which is not a huge deal, it basically goes more in depth on what we've already provided. It is not a mandatory on 40 acres. It's mandatory on 40 acres if you're 10 feet deep or more. And again, that south half is not anywhere close to 10 feet at all. So it would not automatically trigger it on a 40 acres. You could have 100 acres open. If you never went very deep, you wouldn't be triggered for a mandatory. Just a statement on that. And then I think talked to Matt a little bit on the operations on, I think he added the, approved the whole 25 acres, but with the planning and zoning approval after the first 12, 13 acres is finished. And if we didn't get approval to continue on, we wouldn't mine anymore. But Knife River would prefer to keep the 25 acres with the 5-year interim use permit, because right now Knife River does not have any plans to mine that property at this point. I don't see anything this year or next year at this point. That could change. That depends on the Clay County jobs that come available. So I guess otherwise, aside from that, Matt did a great job on explaining everything, so I just answer any questions.
Okay, is there anybody on the board has any questions for Matt, for the applicant?
This is Joel. I have a comment question.
Okay.
So you're referring back to 2009 and moving forward a little bit, that because you weren't actively mining, you didn't consider your footprint as part of the original, 30 or 39 acres?
To continue moving on, that was the agreement that Mr. Magnuson and Clay County and us had come to, that what is, though I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'm just stating the fact that that can be totally reclaimed right now if that's how Mr. Bang would like it left. And we're not mining it. It's a storage, it's an operation area. I guess that's how he looked at it. It's just not mined area.
Okay, because I know I haven't been on the board very long, but I know there is a pit that we recently approved where all the disturbed area is considered that would be considered part of your permit, because it's not reclaimed. You are using it for storage, you're using it for your plant. I was just trying to get some
And that is how Matt,
on what was going on 10 years ago.
yeah, and that is how Matt explained it to me when I put in for the application. That
Okay.
you include the whole area.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Chair, this is Steve. I have a question for the applicant.
Okay,
So Mr. Bascard, thanks for the clarification. And I'm just trying to make sure that I understood exactly what you were saying. But it seemed to me that having 12 acres as part of this interim use permit would actually suit your purposes because you said you don't have any plans to mine in the near future. And so having it staged in with another interim use permit applied, if you actually did use that, would actually work. Is that correct or not?
We could apply again. I guess I'm just looking at the 5 years. I mean, if we have no plans to go in there at this point, 2 years comes pretty quick, and we will be going through this activity again. And
So you're saying that 12 acres would be fine, but do a 5 years for the IUP so that you have more time to be able to take advantage of that 12 acres in mining.
that would be acceptable. But again, say Clay County comes up with a project tomorrow that wants to use or needs to use that 12 acres. Now we are to that stage where we'd like to ask Clay County Planning, is it reclaimed, so on and so forth, can we open up the others 13 to not hold up any progress on any Clay County projects?
But it doesn't take that long to come back in if you needed more acreage. So one of the other questions had to do with you talked about the EAU not being actually that much more arduous. And so doing an environmental assessment worksheet would not be necessarily too bad and would be something that you could do.
It is something we could do. It's a EAW, and the issues that we have seen with the EAWs is because we have another company down south that has done many of them. We've done some. We have not ever seen anything fantastic or conclusive out of it, especially when you're in mining area. So we look at it as more of a time constraint because it does usually take about a year, depending on what's going on. And the other thing is it's a cost of $3,000 to $10,000 depending also, which is all costs that we add in there. And then the results are usually the same as what Matt could find out or myself could find out from the DNR, from the MPCA, from the Fish and Wildlife, whatever we needed for what kind of crops are there, which you've already done with the biological survey or the areas and things like that. So it'll give you the same information that you probably already know. So it's just a time constraint and a money constraint.
Thank you, Mr. Bascard.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. This is Mark
okay, Mark?
for the applicant. You're stating that you got a 5-year window here. Is that enough? I mean, in the past, we've applied or we've done these with a 10 and 15-year window.
I would always go more.
Yeah,
And if I remember right, and it wasn't this pit, but it was another pit in Clay County, and at that time there were yearly permits. And we ended up coming back every year, and the board had said, why are we doing this? At the time, I don't remember who was on the board, and we increased it to 5 or 10 at that time. This one, I think we were looking at 5 because if you did actually hit that schedule, where we had plans to mine the 12 acres, we could get that reclaimed and another 3 acres if we had the jobs. But I would prefer 10 years, yes.
Yeah, question to Matt then, wouldn't it be more useful for the applicant to get a 10 or a 15-year window here? And I mean, the size is right, and 5-year, where'd the 5-year window come?
Mr. Chair and Mark and the applicant, I believe that window may have come from that it matches up with your lease agreement,
The last permit matched up with our lease, that's where.
with their lease agreement with the landowner.
Oh, so you'd want to keep it with the lease?
Not necessarily, because usually the IUPs go with the land. So even if Knife River was not awarded the project, the IUP would still be there.
So,
I
Mr.
believe
Chair.
Matt could maybe answer that one.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, a conditional use permit would go with the land, and that's what our mining permits used to be. An interim use permit does not go with the land. It is triggered by some event, date of expiration, violation of conditions, change of ownership of the property, or change in operator. The IUP is a little bit more flexible in that regard. And so, I have one other thing to add about, I'm really glad that Steph brought up that part of the EAW, mandatory EAW being 40 acres plus 10-foot depth. That is a mean depth for across the entire project area. It would have to be a mean depth of 10 feet, not just 10 feet in certain areas. So you'd look at the depth as a whole of the entire pit and calculate the mean. But that's a good point. That's something that we don't usually talk about. And
This is an interim, not a conditional.
yes, this is an interim use permit. Yep.
So in your opinion, it should stay with that 5-year window with the lease.
That would make sense to me.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? I have one question for you. You reclaimed 25 acres on the east side there.
Correct?
If you're done on top, why didn't you go across and do some more if you're done with it up there, why don't you go across all the way to the west then?
There's still stockpiles there which is part of the next IUP, or if it's part of this IUP for the operation of the asphalt plant, so we can start using some of those products.
You got piles up at the northwest corner?
We're pretty much down the whole center, all the way from the south of the exposed area to the north of the exposed area. You can kind of see them right along the east side, most of those piles. There's milled asphalt on the very south end. There's milled asphalt in the very middle of the bottom section of the disturbed area. There's a stockpile in between those two on the east side, and there's a stockpile to the north. And there's a couple stockpiles further north on that, which are hard to see because they're a little bit deeper.
That's a good reason. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I may have some pictures that kind of show what Steph is talking about. Oops.
Okay.
They're not very good pictures. I didn't drive far enough in, I guess, but I didn't have my hard hat or steel toe boots, and, you know.
No, there was nobody there. They wouldn't have known the difference. Does anybody have any more questions for the applicant? Anybody? Or for Matt?
And as far as excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if I could speak again.
Yes?
As far as the setbacks, we'll honor all those, and we have been in contact with the wind tower company to find out where we need to be for mining as far as their line that's servicing their wind towers. So that is our plan, to make sure we stay away from those areas. And also, one of the major stockpiles in the pit on the very east of the center of the pit is actually Mr. Bang's. It is not ours. So I'm not sure if that'll ever disappear.
Okay,
And Mr. Chair, this is
Yes, Matt.
Matt. Just one other comment. I will say, just looking at the reclaimed 25 acres, just looking at that compared to other pits that I've seen, I'd say it looks really, really good. You would probably never even be able to tell that there was a mining that happened without a really, really close eye and knowledge of that. And so if this whole area ended up looking like that, I think it would be good for the landowner and for Clay County as well, to keep that land productive. And I think that's probably reflected in the higher than normal dollar per acre for bonding that we're seeing from the applicant of $4,000. I mean, we've usually typically see anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 per acre, and I would assume that's the quality of the restoration that's been done is reflected in that cost per acre. That's all I had.
all right, thank you. Well, let's go down to, anybody in the public want to speak for or against this proposal? Anybody to speak for or against? Hearing none. Any other questions for Matt or the applicant one last time? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So move, Ezra.
Linda, seconds.
Okay, we got a motion to close the public hearing in a second. All those in favor say aye. Kurt?
Aye.
Ezra?
Aye.
Here you go.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Joel?
Aye.
Kurt? And Steve?
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. There again, let's go through the facts and findings quick. And one of these days, I'll probably have these memorized. In granting an interim use permit, the planning commission shall consider the effect of the proposed use upon the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of occupants of surrounding lands, existing and anticipated land uses, traffic conditions, including parking facilities, and the effect of agricultural use and values of property and the scenic views in the surrounding areas, and the effect of the proposed use on existing comprehensive plans. The conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, and shall not substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity. The establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding vacant property or uses predominant in the area. Utilities, adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide utilities, access roads, drainage, off-street parking, loading spaces. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive fumes, dust, noise, vibration, water pollution, and soil erosion so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. I believe that was that's being addressed in the conditions, right? The use will not create an excess burden on parks, streets, schools, water supplies, sanitary sewers, storm sewers, and other public utilities or facilities within the proposed area. The use will be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent agricultural lands or used land, so that existing homes will not be depreciated in value and there be no deterrence to agricultural use of said land. The structure and site shall have an appearance that will not be have an adverse effect on adjacent residential properties. overall needs. The use is, in the opinion of the planning commission, reasonably related to the overall needs of the district and the existing land use. In the case of floodplain areas, and it's not floodplain area, we'll skip that. The use is consistent with purposes of this ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use.
So Chair, that one is technically an X because there's part of the zoning is, even though he's not mining in that area, they have stockpiles.
Okay, but I'll add that.
Matt said it gave really nice context to the fact that it was probably okay at the time when they did that.
Yeah, that's basically grandfathered in because it was before the zoning came in, actually.
Right.
Okay, thank you. The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan of any of the county. The use will not cause traffic hazards or congestion in the area. Existing businesses nearby will not be adversely affected because of curtailment of customer trade or by intrusion of noise, glare, and other general unsightliness. Okay, is there any discussion? Any comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra. I have a comment for
Okay.
Matt. With the 14 provisions here, if we approve this, number 12 says batch plant operations. Should that be in here if we're going to have a conditional use permit for, or an interim use permit for the batch plant?
No, that would be in
That'd be its
that'd be
own.
separate. Yep.
So if we take that one
You can
out.
take that one out. Yep. Good catch.
Okay, anything else? What about the, and I think in the past, and I don't know if that's what they've had, if this one's had in the past, but it seemed like, didn't we have to cut crushers off a little bit earlier than 9 o'clock at night? Just some of the other ones we've done?
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra. Most of them, well, some of them we go 6 to 6, but I've seen some come across here from 6 to 9. Some of them, I mean, they're all a little different, but most of them are 6 to 6, I believe, or 7 to 7, or.
Mr. Chair, this is Andrea. I think
Yeah.
anytime we have done extension of hours, it was because of lack of neighbors or anybody in the audience who had complaints about noise.
That's a good comment, and there was nobody that objected to this, was there? And they don't have a lot of neighbors there, just that one to the south.
And Mr. Chair, I did not hear anything, and I didn't ask. I should have maybe asked the applicant about this if he had heard of or heard any complaints from any neighbors to the south at all. And he's saying that no, he has not.
Chair, this is Steve. I guess one of the questions would be, what were the prior hours for the IUPs that were on this? Because the neighbor might just be assuming that it's the same hours.
These are the same.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
I think that Matt
Chair,
said that
no.
these are what's on there now. So, yes?
I have what are the two competitors to the east? What are their crusher hours? Is this the same? Are they less? Are they more? Because Strata would be to the east and Aggregate would be to the east a little further if I have got this spot in my head right.
Yeah, they're in Becker County, and I'm not sure what their permit says.
Yes, they are. They're one. Okay. Okay, sorry. I'll withdraw the question.
This is the east side. This is the east side of the county.
But it is still a good question.
Yeah, it is very good. Any other comments or any comments or thoughts on the expiration date?
This is Steve. I think extending it to 5 years makes sense because it goes with the lease. But I like the idea of keeping it at 12 acres.
Well, if you go to 5, that's, you mean with the, doing the 12 and then contacting the planning and zoning.
Yes.
So it'll be the whole 25, but they have to contact the planning and zoning on, and when stage one is complete.
Well, no, I was actually just thinking that you do 12 and then this provides a check because they have to come in and get another IUP for the next 12 or 13. You know, everything that I see and what's been portrayed, you know, they look like they're doing a really nice job, but there was a large exceedance. I don't know, you know, exactly how that happened.
You know, for what it's worth, my first thought when I read this, and I think I've read this thing about half a dozen times, is that, you know, maybe they should have to do the environmental review, just because. But the more I've heard, the more I've talked to Matt, and the more, because of the way the statute is and stuff, I've come to the conclusion that I don't think that's really necessary. My first thought was that they should just be made to do one, just for the punishment. But you know, there is a cup on the one, and I'm not going to defend Tim, but maybe he didn't do what he was supposed to, and we don't know. Nothing's in writing, so we don't know. But right with the look back, it's not required. And I'm not. I kind of hate to impose anything that's not required by the state. There's enough required by the state and the county and the DNR and everybody else that I don't know if the county has to be adding on a $3,000 to $10,000 burden on their back. That's my opinion. You guys have your own. That's
well,
it.
Mr. Chair, this is Joel. I like option 3. I mean, you give them the 25 acres, they get the 5 years, but in 2 years they get an inspection. They have in the past, you know, gone above and beyond what they should have been. I like option 3.
Okay. I mean that's up to whoever makes it's up to the voting and whoever makes the motion and the voting and whatever. But thanks for your comment.
Mr. Chair, this is Matt. One thing I would say about option 3 is, you know, if we come out there when if stage 1 is complete, Steph calls me up, says stage 1 is complete, and I go out there and it's 15 acres instead of 12 or what exceeds it, that would be a grounds for terminating the current IUP, and then they would have to come in and request a new one anyway.
That answer some questions for folks.
So Matt, on number 3, would you automatically go out and inspect at 2 years just to check?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Mark.
Yes.
I would be in favor of number 1, and it's such a small window of 5 years, and it's kind of nitpicking if it's 12, 13 acres. It's 25 acres is going to go one way or the other, and he's only got a 5-year window to do it. We have on this, you know, matching up the lease. One of us can surely go out and take a peek once in a while, but I would be in favor of number 1 on that 5-year window.
Thank you. Any other comments? Discussion here?
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra. I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to approve this an IUP for
Yes.
number 1, approval of the request of the entire 25 acres for 5 years with conditions 1 through 11 and 13 and 14 have the pit expire in 2026. Would that be 5 years? Yeah. That's my motion.
I'll second it. This is Mark.
Just a minute. What'd you go through? 1 through 10? 1 through 11?
1 through 11, then 13 and 14.
What about 12?
12 will be the next public hearing.
Oh, batch plants. Okay. Okay, got it. Everybody understand what he's made a motion for now? One through,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an amendment to change the approved request for entire 25 acres to basically go to number 3, approved request for 25 acres, but have an inspection. To keep everything else the same.
this is the first time we had this one, Matt. I really don't know what do we do here.
Mr. Chair, I think, regardless, just because of the history of this pit, I'm probably gonna go out and inspect it every year anyway,
Okay,
regardless of what you approve. I mean, one of the conditions, one of the conditions, condition 10, is that the operator is going to present a detailed mining plan, which he kind of already has done. Now, if I look at that in my inspection and look at that detailed mining plan and I'm seeing something that's amiss, we can address it at this time. And, it probably wouldn't be grounds for amending the IUP, but it would be grounds for just keeping tabs on mining as it progresses through this 5-year window.
Mr. Chair,
yes,
I think what Matt's saying is really the direction that the Clay County Board has kind of put him in. I think that we want to get back in the swing of making sure that we're having annual inspections on every entity that we're permitting. So that really is allowed because there's another staff member in this department now, and this is something that wasn't maybe the norm in the past practice, but will be going forward.
thank you, Jenny. That's good information there.
Thank you, Commissioner
I
Mojo.
was wondering too about the manpower, but that answered that question.
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra.
Yeah,
I would allow Steve Lindis's, what did he ask for again? He asked for,
Just switching to number 3, Ezra, instead of number 1. Everything else that you said was great.
I'll do that, but I'll agree to that, but we also get rid of number 6 on my motion.
yes, sir, you're right.
Yeah, well, number 6, you said up to 25 acres.
Yeah.
That was
25 acres.
Yeah, be
Just
up to
change
25
to
acres.
12 to 25.
25.
right. And then it's just the inspections.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you just want the inspection in writing, where even though Matt said they're going to do that
Yeah,
anyway.
put it in
And
I think
writing.
good practice to put it in writing.
Okay, and like I said, that was backed up by Jenny's comments too, but that
Yeah.
works fine with me. So we're going to go one.
Mr. Chair, this is Andrea. I just think it's important to put that in writing to show support for the plant, or for Matt in his office, to show that we want them to do this, we support them doing this, so that if something ever comes back, we can say, no, that this is what the commissioners want, this is what the board wants, and so we do support Matt and his team going out there on these annual inspections, because it is part of the reason why we hired them, is to go out there. Hired Matt in particular, is to go out there and do these inspections, and this will just support that action.
Thank you. So we got a motion to approve 1 through 11 with 25 acres. Option number 3, and then 13 and 14 to expire in 5 years on May 1st, 2026. Correct?
Correct, Chair.
Okay,
Yes.
and we had a second. Mark, did you second the first time? Did you want to second it with the amended?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the permit and a second. All those in favor say aye. Kurt,
Aye.
Ezra,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Joel,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and Kurt, if he's out there. I saw this earlier, but. Okay, motion's approved. Thank you, everybody, for that. Good discussion on that one. The next public hearing will be Knife Rivers Materials, request for interim use permit. The applicant, is seeking approval of an interim use permit to allow the operation of a temporary hot mix asphalt plant on parcel 24.036.2500, the north half of the northwest quarter, section 36, township 138N, range 44W, Park Township. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So move, Ezra.
This is Steve Lindass. I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Kurt?
Aye.
Ezra?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye, sorry.
That's okay. Steve?
Aye.
Joel?
Aye.
And Steve?
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. Matt, could you fill us in on this one, please?
Yeah, so this is a request for a asphalt batch plant. Policy considerations, very similar, exact same as the ones in the previous hearing. Parcel, same zoning. Zoning hasn't changed since the last hearing. So this site was originally granted a CUP in 2009 and an IUP in 2015 for the placement of a temporary asphalt plant. So the request is to operate a hot mix asphalt plant on a temporary basis for a 5-year period. The operation season is April 1st through November 15th of each year through December 31st, 2025. Though I think it would be more appropriate to be 2026. Yeah. Setbacks for batch plants are a little bit different than mines. They have to be 300 feet from property lines, 500 feet from a road or highway right-of-way, 1,000 feet from a residence, church, school, or public establishment. And this location appears to meet all those setbacks. It's kind of the starred areas, the general location. You can kind of see we've got the road right-of-way setback. We've got the property line setback. We have the setback from a residence. So kind of right there in the southern central part of the current pit is kind of where it's going to go. And it sounds like it's going to be taking some materials from the south and then from the north as well to this. Haul route is the same as the gravel pit. So down 290th to County 6 going east or west. And so recommendation is to approve this request with these conditions. Permit shall terminate on December 31st, 2026. Operate within the provisions of the Land Development Ordinance. Control dust, provide necessary maintenance. Providing proof of state permits. Complying with Wetlands Conservation Act provisions, providing parking, screening, lighting, drainage to employees. Present a detailed operations plan for the plant, indicating equipment locations of hazardous material storage and safety measures. And then hours of operation, April 1st through November 15th, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then if they need to go 24/7, they just have to notify the planning office. So essentially the same conditions as what was on the 2015 IUP. Any questions for me at all?
Chair, this is Steve. I have a question for Matt.
Go ahead.
Matt, the number 1, permit shall terminate. Should that be May 1st, or is there a reason to terminate it on December 31st?
That's just what the applicant had requested.
So the other one was May 1st, so it would make more sense if these were coincidence. There's no reason.
Yeah, I suppose, maybe, I think just because the hours of operation for a batch plant are just a little bit different in that, you know, he's looking from April 1st through November 15th, so I don't know if they would set up a batch plant to run from April to May.
Good point.
Yeah, that might be the
We
reason.
can ask the applicant maybe.
Yep.
I got a question or a comment there. 5 years would be, if you cut them off, it's 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. That's 5 years. If you go to 2026, that's 6 years for this permit. It all depends on how you look at it.
I suppose, yeah, we could go, it could be 2025. Yeah, about 5.5 years right now, yeah.
It's 5.5 now, and that half probably doesn't make much sense to them. To me, anyway.
We can round
Where-
down. I know they didn't teach us that in math in high school or school to round down half, but
You notice I was counting on my finger, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It should be 5. 1 to 5 should be 5, but just making sure.
might be worth asking the applicant if they have any job. It's just based on what I heard from the gravel pit. They might not even have anything lined up for this year to operate the batch plant.
Okay. Any other questions for Matt? Anybody have any questions for Matt? On board. Hearing none, would the applicant like to speak to the board at this time?
I can hopefully just answer a couple questions. One, we do have a job for the batch plant this year, so that would like to have that operating. And both IUPs, I apologize, I can't read it right here, but if I said 5 years, that's what I meant. And we always end our leases, or typically, December of that year. So December 31st, 2025 would be a 5-year lease for either one. We don't operate usually, at least the asphalt plants, we won't operate hardly in November. Hopefully done by October.
Okay. Any other comments from the applicant?
No, just here to answer questions again.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant at this time?
Chair, this is Steve. I had a question /
Okay.
comment. So the X where actually the first comment I was just going to say, I appreciated the attention to detail and talking about the SPCC guidelines that you guys are following. It looks really good. But the question really is the X's where the plant is going to be, I'm assuming that's going to be west of the soil that's mounted up there. So it's going to be basically like where that red star is, it's outside the recognized boundary of the resource protection biological.
Yes, I can't quite see Matt's picture there, but it looks like a stockpile right there to the east of that star. Yeah. So we will be right a little bit further south, I think, than where that star is, but right pretty close to that.
Yeah, but yeah, okay, so you weren't going to put it on the west or the east side of that stockpile, which would have.
No.
Perfect, thank you.
That actually has been, over the years, that's been up the same spot over the last, 23 years? No. 13 years. Boy, I'm really aging myself. 13 years, 12 years.
Okay, anybody have any other questions for the applicant? Anybody have any questions for the applicant? Anybody have any questions for Matt? Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chair, you have to ask the audience if they would like to speak.
You're right. I'm gonna try. I skipped a spot. I've even got my notes written down here. How am I supposed to go? Anybody in the public? Anybody in the audience that wants to speak for or against this proposal? Anybody for or against? Hearing none. Now, would anybody want to make a motion to close the public hearing?
So move, Ezra.
Steve Lindass will second.
All those in favor say aye. Kurt,
Aye.
Ezra,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Joel,
Aye.
and Steve.
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. Facts and findings for this public hearing. I'll wait for Matt to get to him. There we go. I took off last time. In granting the interim use permit, the planning commission shall consider the effect of the proposed use upon the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of occupants in surrounding lands, existing and anticipated land uses, traffic conditions, and the effect on agricultural usage and values of property and scenic views in the surrounding areas, and the effect of the proposed use on existing comprehensive plans. The conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, and not substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity. The establishment of the use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for uses predominant in the area. Adequate measures have been taken to provide utilities, parking and drainage for the area. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent, control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, water pollution, and soil erosion so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. The use will not create an excess burden on parks, schools, water supply, sewers, and other public facilities, utilities that will serve or are proposed to serve the area. The use will be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjusted agricultural zoned or used land so that the existing homes will not be depreciated in value and there will be no deterrence to agricultural use of said land. The structure and site shall have an appearance that will not have an adverse effect on adjacent residential properties. The use is, in the opinion of the Planning Commission, reasonably related to the overall needs of the district and the existing land use. Consistency, the use is consistent with the purposes of this ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan of the county. The use will not cause traffic hazards or congestion in the area. Existing businesses will not be adversely affected because of curtailment of customer trade brought on by intrusion of noise, glare, and other in general unsightliness. Any comments and discussion before we move on?
Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
I see on the applicant's application, it's requested to go until December 31st, 2025. And the staff recommendation is to go until December 31st, 2026.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
We talked about that. I think you're okay with going to 15.
Mr. Chair,
We're going to what?
5 years would be 20, it would be 2000, it would be December 31st, 2025.
Well, I think that's 4.5 years. So I just wanted to double check.
That could, well, he made the comment that coincided with their lease, end of their lease agreement is December 31st of 2025.
And I appreciate that. My only concern is that we can't use 5 years because it's not 5 solid years.
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra. The applicant said 2025.
Yes.
And Mr. Chair, this is Matt. We don't have to say that it would be 5 years. We could just say that it terminates on such and such date.
Right, because that gives them 5 seasons to, that's 5 seasons that they would have to operate it. Any other comments? It was a good one. You know, if you go, yeah, you can't call it 5 years and go to any of the year. You'd have to go December to May, but he was okay with December 31st, 2025, the applicant. Any other comments?
Chair, this is Steve. I'm happy to make a motion to approve. If no one has any other comments.
With
So
what condition?
I'd make a motion to approve the IUP with conditions 1 through 8, with 1 being changed to December 31st, 2025.
I will second that, Ezra.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve with the change to date to 2025. All those in favor say aye. Kurt,
Aye.
Ezra,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Joel,
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
The motion is carried. So the permit can be issued for the permit till the end of 2025. Moving along to the fourth one. Turner Sand and Gravel, request for an interim use permit. The applicant is seeking approval of an interim use permit to allow a 36-acre gravel mining operation on parcel 04.006.3004 in the northeast half of the southwest quarter, section 6, township 139N, range 44W, Eglin Township. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So move, Ezra.
Lindas will second.
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All those in favor, Kurt,
Aye.
Ezra,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Joel,
Aye.
and Steve.
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. Matt, could you fill us in on this one, please?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, before we proceed, we did have someone join us from the phone. It looks like it's a 701-866-3492 number. Just wondering if they could hit *6 and to unmute and then just identify themselves. Again, that number is 866-3492. Well, we tried. Oh. Sorry, go ahead.
Mary Krogh,
Thank you, Mary.
you're welcome.
All right, so this is a interim use permit mining request. Policy considerations, same as the first interim use permit mining request that we heard. So I'll just jump into the proposal review. So this is a 73-acre parcel in Eglin Township, right outside of Holly. You can kind of see where it is, that red star on the map there, just east of Holly. Currently, the property is primarily agriculture and then a abandoned gravel mine operation. It's zoned agricultural general, resource protection aggregate, special protection shoreland, and flood fringe. And so the proposed use for extractive mining is allowable in the ag and the RP ag zoning districts. So this site was originally mined for gravel in the 1980s, and my understanding it's been mined intermittently on a very small scale in the 90s and 2000s. Right now it's an abandoned gravel pit, hasn't been reclaimed at all. There's definitely more than 40 to 50 cubic yards of extractable material. It's more like 40 to 50,000. Would not need a permit for 40 to 50 cubic yards. So the applicant requests is to open a 36-acre gravel mine within the footprint of the existing pit while avoiding the special protection shoreland and flood fringe zoning districts. The applicant, if approved, the applicant also plans to apply for a variance to mine in the 100-foot property line setback with the Asplin property to the east. So the plan for this is that excavation will occur intermittently as material is needed. Mining will begin to the south and then move north towards the road. There will be crushing, screening, and stockpiling on site. No dewatering or washing will occur. The estimated depth to the water table is about 8 feet. The applicant would like to mine below the water table if materials are present to a depth of 3 to 4 feet. There will be 3 to 5 employees on site looking for hours of April through December, Monday through Saturday, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for 5 years. So this is a look at the haul route in yellow. So either going from the pit east to 32 or west and south to that Rodeo Drive North or 240th Street. This is a road that is shared with Eglin Township and the City of Holly, and the City of Holly currently provides maintenance on this stretch of road right here. So some considerations: there are multiple riparian wetlands to the south of the proposed project. There is one wetland that's in the proposed pit boundaries. This wetland is likely incidental because it didn't exist before the pit was dug in the 80s, and only started to exist afterwards just because there are conditions that allowed a wetland to form. Applicant in his application requested 36 acres, but when you look at the setbacks, there's only about 15 acres that are mineable. And then if you're going to exclude that wetland from the plan, you'd end up with 9 mineable acres. There's also soils in this pit which have a hydric rating of 1 to 32%. So that means there's a chance, it's very, very low, that there might be some other additional wetland conditions out there. That would need to be determined through a wetland evaluation by the Clay SWCD to determine if there's any additional wetland conditions that exist and if any permits would be required. It's possible, probably likely, that if any are discovered, additional ones, they're all likely to be incidental as a result of that, as a result of the original gravel pit. That if there's any others found, they're determined to be incidental wetlands. They're exempt basically from Minnesota regulation, but not exempt from the Clean Water Act, Section 404, public water permitting process, and that's done by the Corps of Engineers. So I don't know. I've been out on the site. It's pretty dry. So I would say that if there's any hydric soils, they're probably more closer to the 1% than the 32%. And this hydric rating, I'll show you that in a minute. So here's kind of the 15-acre project, which would include the wetland is over here, and you can kind of see it in green here. This is 15 acres. If you were to do 9 acres with a 50-foot buffer around the wetland, this is kind of what you'd be looking at. Most of this is actually considered to be non-hydric soil, great majority of this area. And then if they were able to get a variance for this area right here, you'd be able to tack on some additional acreage to that as well, to that 9 acres. So you can kind of see this is that wetland that was created as a result of the pit. There's additional wetlands down here. They're all riparian, so they're very much connected to the Buffalo River. The Buffalo River is just to the south. So a lot of these wetlands form from not only groundwater, but from flooding conditions of the river as well. And then the depth to groundwater, it's basically estimated all the same throughout this area. But the applicant has determined that it's about 8 feet. This is a look at that wetland that's on the west side there. And then this is just kind of looking west. The road is to the north, and then that wetland is to the south. So you can kind of see how much excavation has occurred in the original pit. So really, in terms of hydric soil ratings, this is from the USDA, NRCS, and it's their web soil survey. You know, this gives you an idea. It's not exactly you know, a guarantee that this is what the conditions are like. That's why you'd want to have a professional from the Soil and Water Conservation District come out and just determine if these soils are hydric or not. But just based on my walking around out there, I would say that everything to the north and east is likely not. This area, definitely not. It's pretty much you're standing right on the material. So for mitigation, there'd be no mining activities within 300 feet of the ordinary high water level of the Buffalo River, within 50 feet of any wetlands. Most of the wetlands are in that ordinary high water or in that buffer anyway, so kind of a moot point. The pit would be sloped away from the river. It kind of already is sloped away from the river towards the interior. Berms would be built where necessary. May need permitting from the state for non-metallic mining and associated activities. Then a wetland evaluation would be completed by the Clay WCD to determine if any state or federal permits would be required. For reclamation, the excavated area would be sloped. There wouldn't be any benching or terracing. The oversized materials and existing topsoil, which there is little of on the site, would be spread over the site. The applicant, though, has expressed a desire, and I think the landowner too, to work with the SWCD to kind of restore the pit to a riparian wetland complex, which probably from the county's perspective would be a good thing, because right now this is kind of what it looks like. Literally just a hole in the ground, no reclamation done, and just kind of the trees and the grasses and the weeds that you don't really want to see are kind of dominant. And no, they have not started any excavation. Kim Carpenter from the Highway Department, that's just his main ride that he likes to drive around. So I guess my recommendation in talking with the applicant, talking with the landowner, would be to approve that requested 9-acre area with conditions. Though if they want to pursue looking at going into that wetland on the west side, they certainly could. I did hear couple of comments from the City of Hawley. The City of Hawley did discuss this, I believe, at one of their council meetings. Their interest is just because this pit is very close to their city limits. Their only two concerns were hours of operation, just with residences kind of in the nearby area. There's some across the river that are in the county, but then there's some over on that North Rodeo Drive as well. And then also because they do the maintenance for North Rodeo Drive, they just want to make sure that the applicant or operator contributes to some of that maintenance as well, just if there's any frequent use of hauling. So just, extra graveling and blading and dust control where necessary. So if you're going to approve this, IUP conditions would be to operate within the provisions of our ordinance, control dust, provide proof of any state permits if necessary, specifically if any WCA Wetland Conservation Act, so that's also called WCA, or Section 404 permits are required. Before beginning any work, have the SWCD do an evaluation of the wetlands. You can do a maximum of 15 acres on areas identified by the Soil and Water Conservation District to contain non-hydric soils, or you could do that 9 or 10 acres if you're not going to include that wetland area. Reclamation bond, 500 per acre. Reclaim mined out areas, just in consultation with any local or state or federal agency that has an interest in that. Provide parking, screening, lighting, drainage, all of that good stuff for employees on site. Looking for mining operations of April 1st through December 31st, 7 to 7, Monday through Saturday, with an hour for maintenance before or after operating hours. And if they need to go beyond that, they can notify the planning office. Maintain that 300-foot buffer from the river. Don't extract anything in the floodplain fringe. That's also known as the 100-year floodplain. Have that permit expire on March 17th, 2026. Any other conditions that you might deem necessary? Yeah, and I guess one other thing I'll say is this might be a good opportunity to, from a county perspective, I know we have a lot of abandoned gravel pits in our county that are really old and they've never been reclaimed, and they're just basically nuisances. And this might be, if done right and if done according to the right standards and regulations, might be a good opportunity to take an abandoned gravel pit, get some material out of it, and restore it to a kind of a riparian wetland complex that could provide water quality benefits, flood storage benefits, habitat, things like that. Any questions at all?
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra. I have a couple questions for Matt.
All right.
With that being said, Matt, should we allow them to go up to 15 acres so they can clean up that supposedly wetland that was there because they mined back in the 80s?
You could, but that you could approve that. That would just be contingent on they'll likely have to get a permit from maybe not from the state, but more than likely from the federal government.
But that would be up to them if they would want to do that or not.
Yep, it would give them the option to pursue that if they wanted to.
And then my other question, if they go for a variance and they could mine up to the property line, that would be over 15 acres. So then that would put this application at risk of being void if they go over 15 acres.
That is a good point.
So should we give them some leeway there, or would it be better off saying like number 14, if they get a variance, they can mine up to that many, whatever so-called acreage that is on top of it?
It's in the 100-foot setback.
Yeah, from the 100-foot
Yep.
setback.
Yep.
So if that's like 2 acres, that's the 2 acres that they could mine.
Yeah.
If they receive a variance.
Yep.
That's all I have now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions for Matt?
Chair, this is Steve. I have a question.
Yep.
So Matt, two questions. The reclamation bond of $500 per acre seems a little bit low. Was that what the applicant had suggested that?
That's what the
1,000
applicant suggested. I would agree that it does seem low. Would be probably the lowest reclamation bond we've ever required.
Right. So I would think that at least $1,000, and could be a little bit more if they actually are doing a fantastic job, or maybe riparian restoration is less expensive. And so the other question has to do with the concern of holly. That's something that's separate, doesn't need to be addressed in our conditions in terms of making sure that they're contributing to road maintenance if they.
So, we do, and the conditions, number 2, that the operator control dust and provide necessary maintenance on any and all gravel
Okay.
roads. I did inform the city of Holly of that. They were happy to hear that that was maybe a proposed condition. And they also were appreciative of the hours of operation.
Okay, so that explains. I was just making sure that covered it.
Yep.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Matt?
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra again. I have one more question for Matt.
Okay.
That Hall Road going north to 32, is that a township road or a county road?
I believe it's a township road.
Have you heard anything from Eglin Township or no?
No.
That's all I have right now.
And I do have, there are folks from the highway department here, our county engineer, Dave Overbo, assistant engineer, Justin Sorum, and foreman, Kim Carpenter are here as well if you have any questions for them.
Mr. Chair, I got a quick question for Matt.
Go ahead.
They're excavating below the water table. Normally we've been 10 feet above the water table on these pits. Is there any problem with going into the water? They could make a lake there. Go into that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Mark, I think, in other areas, we've, wanted or required the operator to maintain some sort of buffer, whether it's 5 feet or 10 feet. In those situations, I think the reasoning has been because they would be more connected to the groundwater, and they would be up gradient from wetlands. So essentially what that means when you're doing something up gradient of a wetland, it's occurring at a higher elevation, and it's occurring at it's up gradient is similar to upstream from a river. And so you can have more of an impact on those wetlands if you're going into the water table when you're up gradient from them. There's been instances where you've seen dewatering happen in wetlands just because water's evaporating out of those pits. Those pits are usually quite deep, that they've seen that on. I mean, we're talking 50, 60 feet deep. In this instance, I don't think that the concern would be as great, just because a lot of these wetlands, one of their sources is from flooding from the river, and so that can recharge these wetlands. They're not as dependent on groundwater per se. I mean, it's still important, but they are also more influenced by just kind of how a river rises and falls and flooding patterns and things like that. So, my thought is if this is done correctly, it would probably be beneficial to water quality, as well as in terms of when it's all said and done, having a complex of wetlands that can control runoff to the river, that can also store water. It's directly upstream of Hawley. And I can't go in and say that this is going to have a positive or negative water quantity benefit in terms of reducing peak flows for flooding downstream, but in all likelihood, typically these wetlands that are right next to rivers do have a positive impact on reducing flow to downstream areas. So could be a benefit to the city of Hawley for that. But that's all predicated on it being done right and it not ending up like it is now, which is just a abandoned gravel pit.
Got a comment there too. On your picture right there, that's a big open pit right to that's standing water right to the east there, isn't it?
Yep.
Right. I mean, that's what that one is.
Yep, that's owned by Asplin. Little deeper. I think they dug a little bit deeper hole. They haven't done any mining in there for a while, so if they ever started up again, they would have to come in and get an IUP as well. My understanding in talking to the owner of this property is they have quite a large sand stockpile here, and they just take that material every now and then, so. And I think too, if you're looking at what the applicant proposes, going down 8 feet and then additional 3 to 4, you're likely not looking at something like this where you have this is probably much deeper than that. Yeah, I couldn't tell you how deep this pit would be, and I wouldn't recommend trying to dive to the bottom to find out, but I'm sure it's probably 10 or 12 feet deep at least. 25 feet maybe, yeah. It's deep. So whatever's happening over here would not be that deep.
So, Matt, this is Joel. So they're planning on going north then to Junction and then going east to 32 and out and about?
Yep. To what?
Okay.
Or west.
East or west?
Or west. East or west.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, this is Andrea. That Junction Avenue is the old railroad bed. That's a really hard road.
Yeah, I know it's old something. I don't know if it was old highway in there, old highway 10, or if that was the old railroad bed, but yeah, it's.
That's a railroad bed that went through there before they moved it.
You're saying it's really not that much of a road.
Well, Mr. Chair, I drove it the other day. It was really nice.
It is a good road, yeah. It's been really well maintained. It's hard as a rock, actually. It's a pretty good road.
I might even say that it's one of the better or even the best gravel road that I've driven down in a long time.
Consider the townships.
If it was an old railroad bed, it was probably got pretty good pace on it.
Yep.
Yeah, the roads in that area, I mean, since Billy got hired, I live in Eglin Township, and I really think that our roads in our area, my part of the township, are far better the last 3 years than they ever have been in the almost 15 I've been up here.
You say you're getting spoiled, Joel?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Matt? Hearing none, it's time for the applicant. Would the applicant like to speak to the board at this time?
I'm Leroy Turner from Turner Sand and Gravel. I guess the only comment that I would have is the question about why I put the cost of reclamation in this pit as low as I did. A number of years ago, we reclaimed the Salberg pit, which is almost directly east of this pit. And I tracked our costs on reclamation of that pit. And our costs were about $1,000 an acre on that pit. In this case, because we're gonna mine down to the water, or maybe into the water by a few feet to basically create a wetland, the reclamation on this pit will be much less, and the depth of the pit is so shallow to start out with, there won't be that much material to move. Any other questions, I would be glad to answer if I can.
Okay, any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, this is Andrea.
Yes.
Say, Leroy, is that local gravel? Is that township gravel that you're taking out of there? Or is that gonna?
We believe it will be probably township gravel. Because we haven't really done a lot of any excavation in here. All I can take is the word of that landowner on what he believes that is there, and he had another person look at it and believes the quality is good enough to make gravel in there. So we will just make what we can out of that pit, just to try to clean it up for the landowner and the county.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions for the applicant? I have a question for you, I guess. What's your preference? The 9 acres gives you a pretty small area to do, or?
Right, the more area that we have access to, obviously the more material we'll be able to get out of there. My understanding is the landowner and Matt was able to get a hold of Asplin, and they said that they would be okay to go up to the property line. But we have not gotten that in writing at this point. But when we do, then we would, as long as the Planning and Zoning Board gives us that variance, we would have that with their written permission.
What about that to the west where there's what they call it, incidental or whatever it is, wetland?
Well, I don't believe that if we got into a bunch of mitigation and cost to take anything out, if it's actually that I don't remember the term that's used. Matt, can you help me? The music?
Emergent wetland.
Yeah, emergent. You know, if we have to do a bunch of mitigation, then it's not worth it, obviously.
So it makes a difference on the permit. If you only got 9 acres, you have no option. If you got the 15 or more, then you have the option to go in there. I'm just trying to clarify what's.
Well, I believe that you should give us as much as you can, and if we can't go in there by statute or by law, we can't go in there. So.
And Mr. Chair, I think there is a pretty decent chance that they could go through there. It's just get into there just because of it being probably highly likely that it's an incidental wetland, but I just don't know if the permitting time and investment, it would be worth it for whatever material may be found under there.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering, if they're not going to pursue it, it doesn't matter if they want to pursue it, and if they find out it's too much for them, they can, if it's within their cost, they can do it or not. But that's up to them. Anybody else have a question for the applicant? Anybody have any questions for Matt or the applicant? Okay, about the public. Anybody in the public want to speak for or against this proposal? Anybody in the audience speak for or against this proposal? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So move, Ezra.
I'll make a motion. Second, Kurt Stubbsted.
Okay, there's Kurt. Okay, we got a motion by Ezra to close it, second by Kurt, I think. We'll vote on that. Kurt Turbin,
Aye.
all those in favor of closing the public hearing? Kurt,
Aye.
Ezra,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Laura, Jenny,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Joel,
Aye.
Kurt, Subsid,
Aye.
and Steve Mortensen.
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. There again, let's go through the facts and findings. Turner, okay. Effective use. In granting an interim use permit, the planning commission shall consider the effect of the proposed use upon the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of occupants of the surrounding lands, existing and anticipated land uses, traffic conditions, including parking on adjacent streets and land, and the effect on agricultural usage and values of property and scenic views in the surrounding areas, and the effect of the proposed use on existing comprehensive plans. The conditional use, or there'll be an interim use permit, will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, and not substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity. Establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding vacant land for purposes predominant in the area. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide utilities, access roads, drainage, and off-street parking and loading spaces. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, water pollution, and soil erosion, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other lights in such manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. The use will not create an excessive burden on parks, schools, streets, water supplies, sewers, and other public facilities or utilities that will serve or are proposed to serve the area. The use will be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent agricultural zoned or used lands so that existing homes will not be depreciate in value, and there will be no deterrence to agricultural use of said land. Site and structure shall have an appearance that will not adversely affect adjacent properties. The use is, in the opinion of the Planning Commission, reasonably related to the overall needs of the district and existing land use. The use is consistent with purposes of this ordinance and the purposes in the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. The use is not conflict with comprehensive plan, if any, of this city or county, township. The use will not cause traffic hazards and congestions in floodplain areas as access during flooding for ordinary and emergency vehicles. Existing businesses nearby will not be adversely affected because of curtailment of trade, customer trade brought about by intrusion of noise, glare, or general unsightliness. Okay, need discussion about this proposal. Anybody got any thoughts or comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra. I have one comment.
Yes.
On number 5 here for recommendations, can we scratch the word maximum of 15 acres to around 15 acres? Because if he goes after a variance, that might be an acre or an acre and a half or 2 acres that he would gain there. So if we could have, greater or less than 5 acres of the 15, or how would you do that, Matt?
Mr. Chair, this is Steve. You could say just up to, 17 acres. It looked like about 2 acres if you got that variance.
It's best, this is Andrea, it's best not to be too vague. I agree with Steve, up to is better than around or leaving it too terribly vague.
Yeah, or up to is a maximum is the same wording. If you think it's 2 acres, make it 17. If you think it's 3, make it 18.
I know, but we don't know that. It could be 2, it could be 3. Or we could put whatever, we could also have a condition on if there is a variance approved, whatever acres that is. Because that once we figure out that acreage, it's not 2 or 3, it is a number. Once we find out that number, that's what it would be.
Mr.
So then
Chair,
you could say a maximum of 15 acres plus any variance acres that
Yes.
might be approved.
Yes. That's how I would word number 5.
You want to add plus any possible
Variance acres.
in the future?
Yes.
Okay, what about the reclamation bond?
He made a pretty good point. This is Ezra, Mr. Chair. He made a pretty good point on how that would price out. If we're going into the water, it's less dirt you got to move around, and you're not moving around dirt and water. So, we couldn't go up to $1,000, but it's just a bond. If he does the work, he gets his money back. So
You better have a little.
then, if we go to $1,000, it's not. I'd feel comfortable going to $1,000.
You want to go to the 15 acres, and if it's up to him to go to the Soil and Water Conservation to see if they want us to do anything with that emergent water.
Yeah.
Wetlands?
Yeah, that's up to him if he wants to go in there or not. Let him decide. If it's
Okay.
cost effective.
Anybody else have any comments? Any other corrections or requirements on the conditions? We're ready for a motion one way or the other.
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra. I'll make a motion to approve the IUP with conditions 1 through 4 as stated. Number 5 stated a maximum of 15 acres plus whatever variance acres might be approved, and require the bond of $1,000 per acre. Plus, that'd be number 6, and then plus 7 through 11.
This is Steve Lindaus. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve with the conditions as stated, as were just repeated. All those in favor say aye. Kurt?
Aye.
Ezra?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Steve Lindus?
Aye.
And Joel?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
And Steve Mortensen?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Thank you. Everybody on that one? Time's getting to be 9:15. Anybody want to take a break or should we just pound through these last two? I don't think these will take too long. Hearing no break sound. The next public hearing, Treble Industries LLC, request for interim use permit. The applicant is seeking approval of an interim use permit to allow a service business on parcel 21.002.20.001 in part of the northwest quarter of Section 2, Township 139N, Range 48W, Moorhead Township. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Mojo opens.
Lindos seconds.
We have a motion to open the public hearing. A second. All those in favor, say aye. Kurt?
Aye.
Ezra?
I think he took a break.
Oh, you did. Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye.
And Steve?
Aye.
Joel?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
And Steve?
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. Matt, could you fill us in on this one, please?
Yep. This is a IUP request for a service business in the Urban Expansion District Tier 1. Some policy considerations, you know, with all of ours, recognizing and supporting agricultural character in Clay County, supporting long-term protection of agriculture, plan for orderly and efficient growth of commercial and industrial development in the county through the application of appropriate zoning districts regulation. Policy 2 of that is encouraging commercial and industrial developments which do not need public sewer and water to locate within planned urban growth areas. Plan land uses and implement standards to minimize land use conflicts. Encouraging location of commercial and industrial development in areas that avoid adverse impacts on residents. Locate and design industrial commercial developments that avoid truck traffic through residential or other potentially adversely affected areas. This is the 14.25 acre parcel in Moorhead Township. Property is currently used as a basement foundation repair service business. The property is zoned Urban Expansion District Tier 1 and Flood Fringe. The service business is an allowable use in the UED Tier 1 zoning district. It's not an allowable use in the Flood Fringe. Most of that flood fringe you can see on this map here is kind of along the outer edge of the property. The building is out of that flood fringe. So this site was originally a farmstead site, had numerous buildings for crop storage, had migrant worker housing, underwent several single lot subdivisions from the 90s to the early 2000s, most of which don't make any sense why they were subdivided that way. It was operated by Performance Auto Glass and Adelman Sand Excavating from 2013 to 2019. Not a whole lot of business, my understanding from those two, maybe a little bit with Adelman Sand and Excavating. Most of the buildings on site were destroyed, demoed, buried on the property. There was some MPCA violations a few years back concerning the burying of asbestos in the ground. Those were remedied. The only remaining structure on site is a 1973 9,600 square foot building, and building has been updated probably in the late 2010s. So the applicant's requesting to operate the basement foundation repair service business out of the existing building on the property. So this is what the property looked like in 1991. This is basically it right here. A lot more buildings on site, some buildings down here, some buildings back in here that you can't really see very well. So if we go to 2003, still much of those buildings remain. This one looks like it lost its roof. Then in 2014, you can kind of see that these buildings are all really, they've been demoed or just allowed to just fall apart. naturally. And this is the site in 2018. So foundations, these buildings were likely buried, a lot of cars on the site. Today, this site this is what the site looks like today. So this is looking south from the site, looking to the west. This is the access right here. This is looking to the east. So beyond these trees, you can see that the property is fairly well screened. This is the building, that 9,600 square foot building. Right now, so this is a business that's conducted primarily off-site. The building is used for storage of vehicles. I think they have an office in there, but I don't think they have anyone on hand to answer any phone calls or anything like that, because when you call the number, you get someone in Litchfield, Minnesota. So it's used for storage of vehicles, equipment, maintenance work. There are 3 full-time employees out of the site. Their hours are typically daytime between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. So that means they're typically leaving in the morning, going out to their job site, coming back in the evening, unless they have an out-of-town site or something where they'd be getting back a little later. So they do own the access to County Road 9, and their access is about 20 feet wide. So standards, these are tiny, so maybe what I can do here is pull up a larger version for you. All right, so standards. Service business shall be an interim use. There's only 1 interim use permit allowed per parcel. It's limited to existing structures unless, the city of Dilworth, the city of Moorhead finds that, an additional structure would not be in conflict with their comprehensive plans. No more than 15 full-time employees. They're well below that right now at 3. They can have 1 sign on their building. Their traffic, which has to be considered by the Planning Commission. Can't do anything that creates any noise, vibration, glare, fumes, odors, electrical interference detectable off the premises. They must be buffered. Utilities can't create any, can't create a burden on utilities. They have to have parking. They're inspected every 5 years. So those are the standards that are in place. Go back here. And I don't know if I did not see the applicants in the meeting. Nope, the applicant is not in here today.
Okay. Well, I think we've talked about this for the last how many months, so I think we got an idea what this is.
Yep. One thing that have made clear to the applicant is that this text amendment that would allow a service business is really for properties, for people to utilize properties with buildings that are like this, that can't really be used for anything else in this zoning district until they're incorporated, annexed, what have you. And so really been emphasizing that this is not really an area to grow a business. If you're looking at getting to the point where you're exceeding the standards in this ordinance, it's probably time to relocate and look for a more appropriate site for your business. And so I think that that's something that's really important to acknowledge. Any questions? I guess my recommendation is to approve this, but in addition to the standards for service businesses, just the condition that equipment or materials can't be stored on areas of the property that are in the flood fringe. This isn't an area that's really known for flooding, but it's in the flood fringe, so. Any questions for me at all?
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra. I have a question for Matt. Do you have
Go ahead.
do you have a picture that shows what is that whole property in the flood fringe, or is there just a chunk of that property?
No, it's really kind of the outlying areas. I can go back to that map. It's this orange, essentially.
Okay, I see that now.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
So very little
you're
bit would be
behind
in
the building to the east, and then a little bit to the south.
Yep.
Yep.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right. You know, one comment for that, I don't understand why it's a flood fringe. I honestly don't understand. I live south and east here in Medevac. I crossed that field. That thing hasn't flooded ever. I've been here for 40 years. But that's the way the government has got it. Silly. Any other questions for Matt? Any other questions for Matt? I asked for the applicant, but he's not on the line. Does the applicant have any comment? Comes down to the public. Anybody out in the public in the general online or there that wants to speak for or against this proposal? Anybody out there today that for or against this proposal today?
Yes.
Excuse me, did you say something? Somebody say something?
Yes, this is Julie Kennedy. I'm a neighbor of the property. When we bought this property, everything was residential. The businesses that were in there before were running without any permit. They were doing side jobs. The other business, the excavating business, he only worked in a shop on his stuff. He was not in business, but he owned a business that he was selling in West Fargo. All the property used to be residential, and with a tier 1 of Dilworth, they're showing this area as low residential also. We are always assured that we'll be with residential area. This property also shares the road with a resident, 2 residents, and also another business without a conditional use permit on site. That road has a lot of traffic coming in and out of that site. Also, I feel it really affects the marketability of our properties. Not many, when you want to sell or something, not many people are going to want to buy your property if there's a business in the backyard. And that's, they have no frontage, just the 20 feet to drive in and out of the property. And that's, with us, if they have a sign out on the road, I don't know where they would put it. So, and I kind of worry that if we allow this coming in, others will buy up property in the area and do the same thing, start up service businesses. And it's just in their comp plan for the city of Dilworth, it was supposed to be low residential and not in commercial. But that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
And, oh, I did remember one other thing. I know in the one meeting, he mentioned he wanted to grow. I know Matt was saying that he only has three businesses, but he wanted to grow and make that a bigger business. So, and then he would have to go back to the city and ask them if he could increase his number of things. And then he was looking at other business purposes for the rest of the acreage. And I'm worried that he would subdivide it and other businesses would come in.
Speaking with
Sorry.
Peyton, ma'am, I was speaking with Peyton for his word. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, unless he says it doesn't happen, it's always out there. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your comments. Is there any other comments in the public? Anybody else have any questions for Matt? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So move, Ezra.
Is there a second? Linda, second. All those in favor, close the public hearing, say aye. Kurt?
Aye.
Ezra?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Joel?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
And Steve?
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. Let me get my facts and finding sheets and we'll read through these for here too. Yeah, I got the right one here. Okay, effective use. In granting an interim use permit, the planning commission shall consider the effect of the proposed use upon the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of occupants of surrounding lands, existing and anticipated land uses, traffic conditions, including parking facilities and adjacent streets and land, and the effect on agricultural usage and values of property and scenic views in the surrounding areas, and the effect of the proposed use on existing comprehensive plans. The conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity of the purpose already permitted, and not substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity.
I guess that's a question that Mrs. Kennedy is bringing up.
Yes, it is. Good point. The establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding vacant property or uses predominant in the area.
I was wrong. It was 10:30.
What was that? Okay. The adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide utilities, access roads, drainage, off-street parking, and loading spaces. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, water pollution, and soil erosion so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs or lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. The use will not create an excess burden on parks, schools, streets, water supplies, sewers, and other public facilities or utilities that serve or are proposed to serve the area. The use will be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent agricultural zone or used lands so that the existing homes will not be depreciated in value and there will be no deterrence to agricultural use of said land. The structure and site shall have an appearance that will not adversely affect, will not have an adverse effect upon adjacent properties, residential properties. The use is, in the opinion of the Planning Commission, reasonably related to the overall needs of the district and to the existing land use. In the case of floodplain areas, the proof of the location is necessary for facility operation, and alternative sites not susceptible to flooding are now available. The use is consistent with the purposes of this ordinance and purposes in the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan, if any, of the township or city or county.
That's an interesting one because it's not in, it's long range conflict, it's not a short range.
Yeah, I think that one's always been the question on the whole discussion we've had here.
Exactly.
The use will not cause traffic hazards or congestion in floodplain areas. In floodplain areas as accessed during flooding for ordinary and emergency vehicles. Existing businesses nearby will not be adversely affected because of curtailment of customer trade brought about by intrusion of noise and glare or general unsightliness. Okay, is there any comments or discussion about this one? Everyone? Anybody have any comments?
Yeah, so Chair, this is Steve.
Yes.
And I guess, you know, essentially this now with the changes to the Tier 1 expansion District 1, you know, this request meets, it falls within that. And so I feel for the, you know, adjacent property owners that have concerns. You know, we can't force neighborly conduct, but it feels like Mr. Tribble could use some, you know, outreach just to avoid problems in the near future.
Yeah, and I know that this lady here has been concerned about this, but I think Matt said in there, it can't be subdivided, it can't be, you know, it can't be parceled out. And I don't think Moorhead and or Dilworth is going to ever agree to have it parceled and other commercial buildings built in there. I talked to Peyton, and well, even on his comments when he was here the last month or the month before, that's just wouldn't happen because it's stayed right here. Must have agreement by city of Dilworth and or Moorhead. So I just don't believe that's ever going to happen. And it says you can't subdivide. Matt said that is part of the ordinance. So
yeah, I concur. It's just best case scenario. All fears are waylaid by you know, his business that he's operating.
if you go back to that map that that the city of Dilworth supplied, I don't think they know what to do, what's going to happen in that corner out there. If you kind of look at the map, it's just kind of a blank around it. It just they don't know what's going to happen. I think because of the mismatch of housing that's in there now. It doesn't really fit into any of what you would say neighborhood plan, maybe.
And Mr. Chair, I can maybe comment on that a little bit because I've had some conversations with the city of Dilworth, and you know, they do have it set as low density residential at some point in the future, but one that is all developer driven. So, you know, they would need to have a developer that's willing and able to go in and acquire the land to develop it in that manner. They have quite a bit of acreage to the east that would likely be developed first before that would ever happen. And so recognizing that, I think this is really just kind of a compromise type situation where you don't want a property to sit vacant and not have any use at all, but to allow the landowner to use what's there existing in a reasonable manner that doesn't really alter the character of the neighborhood. And that's why I think it's so important that if he decides to grow beyond what our standards are, that's when it's maybe time to look at looking at reaching out to a developer and seeing if they'd be interested in purchasing the property. And also finding a new spot that's more appropriate for a business such as this. I guess one thing that I will say, and just looking at what this property looked like 5 years ago, even 2 years ago compared to today, it's probably more attractive for low-density residential development now, just because there aren't, 50 junk cars sitting on it and a bunch of, buildings that are dilapidated and falling apart. And so the goal is to try and keep it as much as it is in its current state as possible, and just allowing the landowner to use his property and this building in a reasonable manner. And with regards to subdivisions, that's actually in the City of Dilworth's extraterritorial area. So the county does not even have jurisdiction for any subdivision requests. That would all have to go through the city. Mr. Treble couldn't apply for a building permit with the way that his property currently is and the way that it's set up as it is right now. So those are kind of I don't know if you want to call them safeguards or standards that are in place to ensure that, yep, this property can be used, this building can be used, other buildings, similar buildings in this district can be used like this in the interim. But whenever the, long-range comprehensive plan actually is implemented in this area, then it would revert to that use.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and for whatever reason too, if you take a look at the City of Dilworth too, the stuff out here to the around this property to the north, to the east there, it's the only it's the only chunk of ground around Dilworth that somebody decided this would be kind of nice to have this here, and they've got it platted out. Well, I don't think the developers want to come in there and do that, so they're going out to the east where they've got basically a blank slate, and they can do whatever they want and you can develop it how they want to. I really think this out here is not going to be, my lifetime isn't that long anymore, but it's not going to be in my lifetime, I think, anything's ever out here. But anyway, any other comments? Is there a motion one way or the other, folks?
Say, Mr. Chair, because this is an interim use permit, it might not be a bad idea to set a date for renewal or expiration on this, so it can be revisited in the future, in addition to the conditions that are recommended.
Mr. Chair, this is Ezra. I have a question for Matt on that.
Sure.
Would that go with like a sale of the property, or could we have something like that?
It could automatically go with the sale of the property. That's already in the development code. That would automatically, for an interim use permit, would trigger that. It would still have to be inspected regularly by the planning and zoning departments as well. So in the interim before, if and when that happens.
So a 5-year isn't necessarily just a sale of property?
Yeah, that 5-year might be arbitrary, but I think a lot can change too in 5 years.
Yeah. Anybody have any thoughts on the expiration date?
Would 5 years be unreasonable?
5 years might be interesting because then that would have the applicant revisit and we can see how the neighbors are reacting too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Anybody want to put a motion out there? One way or the other?
I'll make a motion to approve the interim use permit with adding the 5 years to reapply.
So you want it to expire 5 years, that's what, 5/1 of 2026?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Is there a second to that motion?
Mr. Chair, this is Steve Mortensen. I'll second that.
Very good. We got a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor say aye. Kurt?
Aye.
Irvin? Ezra?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Joel?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
And Steve?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. One last. And this is for Scott Manthe, request for conditional use permit amendment. The applicant is seeking an amendment to conditional use permit for a commercial storage business on parcel 04.050.0240 in the northwest quarter of Section 7, Township 139N, Range 44W, Eglin Township. Is there a motion to open public hearing?
So move, Ezra.
Mojo opens.
We had
Second.
said,
Second, Ezra.
okay. We've got the motion. Did Rita get it?
Yes, she did.
Okay. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye. Kurt?
Aye.
Ezra?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
And then Joel?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is open. Matt, could you fill us in on this one, please?
Yep, this is an amendment request to a 2017 CUP by Scott Manthe. Policy considerations are to maximize potential of Clay County, thriving center for agriculture, business, recreation, plan for orderly, efficient growth of commercial, industrial, and development, plan land uses and implement standards to minimize land use conflicts. So this is a 72-acre parcel. It's located in Eglin Township. It's currently a residential parcel, but also agriculture and some existing commercial storage. It's zoned agricultural general, and this use is permitted in the zoning district. So the background on this is the applicant received a CUP for a 14-unit commercial storage business in 2017. In 2020, the applicant received a building permit for an agricultural storage building near the existing commercial storage building in 2020. And this building has prompted concerns from neighboring residential properties about restrictions of views and impacts to property values. And this building did meet the standards of the development code in terms of setbacks and use and all of that. But there are some concerns about the neighborhood to the east, the views, and then potential impacts to property values. The request is for an additional 10 acre, or not 10 acre, that'd be large, 10 unit storage building. So this request requires a CUP amendment. This is kind of what it looks like right now. There's an existing building right here. This is where the agricultural building is. This is for farm equipment, essentially, that's owned by the applicant, pretty close to this residence here to the north, and then the residences to the east as well, and on quite a large parcel. Not necessarily part of this, it's not part of this CUP request, but just because of its proximity, it's worth mentioning, and there's some just worth discussion. This is kind of what it looks like right now. Oh, and I should say that the proposed building would go directly across to the west of the existing building. So this is what it looks like right now. This is the existing 14 unit storage, and then this is what Mr. Manthe uses for his equipment. CUP conditions from the 2017 conditional use permit, that the applicant had to attain all state permits for particularly likely probably like a construction stormwater permit would have been probably the most appropriate in this case. He had a signage permit. There was a sign up. Has to meet all the setback requirements. No outdoor storage shall be allowed. Days and hours of operation are year-round, 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's kind of one of those things where if you own a unit, you drive up to it, you go in, you get your stuff, you put your stuff in, or you take stuff out. Condition 6 has been addressed, as well as condition 7. So I guess the main considerations are the neighborhood concerns about the impacts of these buildings to the views and property values. This new building would not contribute to any further degradation of views, in my opinion. There might be some concerns that this personal agricultural storage building, the purpose of it was to make use of the existing road that goes to the storage units, as well as drainage. The property slopes from east to west, goes from pretty high to pretty low, so it slopes to the west. So building on the east side from a drainage perspective seemed, I guess, practical in that sense. This proposed use is in line with the City of Holly's future land use plan. So they, like Dilworth, have a future land use plan, and this plan got this area kind of marked for commercial development. That's just the area along Highway 10, and then residential for the remainder. So just looking solely at the CUP amendment, including with the following conditions, and then any other conditions that you deem necessary. It's possible, that I was thinking about this a little bit. Some other conditions might be some more attractive screening between the existing building and even that ag building in the form of shrubs or trees or whatever. So residents don't have to stare at a side of a metal building from their property. Might seem like a reasonable condition to put on this. Any questions for me at all?
Chair, this is Steve. I do have a question.
Sure.
So Matt, the additional screening, I guess I was going to ask about that neighbors, is there any actual screening fence behind that?
I don't believe there's a fence right now. And quite honestly, I don't know if a fence would be the most practical way to address that. This is kind of the neighborhood. This is one building, the new building would be right here.
Yeah.
There are trees, I mean, in the neighboring properties. There are some trees already.
Yeah, when I first looked at this, I thought that was going to be the applicant's home that was right next to the storage units. And then it was like, oh, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But it's not.
No.
They live over in the other.
Yep, they live to the south.
West and south, right?
East and south, yep. Yeah.
East and south.
Yep.
Matt, I have a question on the screening request.
Yep.
Is the request that the new building would create more of a nuisance?
I don't think it's necessarily that the new building would create more of a nuisance. It's the existing building. And because so it's this existing building that's part of the original CUP, but then there's this personal storage building that's larger than this one, that's kind of tucked in right here. And I think that one was kind of more of a concern that I've been hearing from residents once they've kind of understood that the new building would go over here. And I mean, you know, this
but
guy
isn't
is
that
like
out of our purview?
What's that?
I said, isn't that out of our, our jurisdiction really?
Yeah, that would be out of our jurisdiction in this case. For this request. This request would just, the only tie-in.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, and even any fencing request really wouldn't make sense because you'd still see the top of a building. I mean.
Yep. So I think the only tie-in to the CUP request is any concerns that this personal storage building would become a commercial storage building. And so there just need to be some assurances or way to verify that is not the case.
Understood. And I think my other question would be, isn't the elevation of the new building on the west side probably downhill from what the original building that runs north to south would be? And if so, it would probably be screened already by the existing building.
That's correct. You wouldn't see it because there's already this building here.
Thank you.
Yeah, Matt, I guess my question more for the screening had to do with increased traffic potential.
Sure.
I didn't think that it was going to be a visual issue. It was going to be more, especially when you kind of go just north of that and stuff. So you get more, essentially you have people coming in and I mean, are they actually expecting to be 24 hours operating?
That's what that's what the current CUP is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and in our development code, we don't have any standards or ordinance for obstruction of views beyond what's in our shoreland, special protection shoreland zoning district. We do have standards for obstructing views in that zoning district, but in our development code, what we have right now is basically just setback standards, and they're pretty minimal, 10 feet from a side yard and 5 feet from a rear yard property line.
Matt, this is Joel. I assume then they have to use the private road that Manthe created to come in.
Yep, it would be the same road.
They can't access this property by coming by Blossoms or Stems of Joy or whatever it's called now. They've got to come in from the west.
Yep, they would have to come in from the west.
And I guess my thought on the screening, similar to Jenny, was why would you make them do some screening after the fact? They've already got the building, they got the permits. So, yeah. Thank you.
That was talked about, Joel, that was talked about quite a bit when they first got this though, about the screening, and well, they didn't think they really needed it at the time, I can't remember the exact wordings, but yeah, I don't know what, You know, because the trees kind of screen where the building isn't there. You know, up to at the north end. And the only thing that concerns me is, you know, the so-called agricultural building is, that could went in there because it was an agricultural building. County didn't have any say on that. That was township. But you notice he's got his pad, his driveway goes all the way in there. And I don't know why you'd have it connected to that, connected to the storage building if it's agricultural, if it's not being used for commercial right now. I'd be surprised if somebody isn't in there. And that's just me because I'm kind of think that's the way people operate. Maybe I'm not too trusting, but it looks like it's set up. And you go back to your pictures in there that you took to it. It looks like it's drivewayed right in there. Right there. Looks like it's drivewayed right in there. And why you would even have that connected if that was for personal use is beyond me. Of course, I guess he could bring his own boat and stuff and put in there.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that was my understanding from the applicant is so he could just use the existing road that was already there for to drive his farm equipment into.
Agreed. Mr. Chair, that field just directly to the south of that is I believe it still belongs to the applicant. And part of the issue was that he was going to sacrifice so much of that northern frontage when he had to put that road in, that it made sense, you know, to keep it all part as one. I understand what you're saying, but I also, you know, if he's putting all the money in to put a road in, why not put his own personal facility there too?
Yeah, but I'm just saying that we didn't have any control over that anyway because that was it's personal building for agricultural. And that's just a building permit from the county or the township, where it is. But it just looks, you know, it just looks kind of like that's what the plan is. But I could be wrong. He says it's not, so it's not. So.
And Mr. Chair, too, my understanding is that while the other building and the new proposed building, they have separate units that can be rented. The personal ag building is completely open and.
That particular building right there in that particular spot with a 14-foot wall or 14 or 16, whatever that is, that's a big sidewall. That really shut off the, you know, not only to the view to the west there, but it really took everything out to the south too. But like I say, you only own the lot you will own, and that's really all you can say. He owns that land, so I guess he can do it. So. But at least the buildings do look very nice. They're nice. They're nice looking buildings. They're not shacks.
Yeah, and again, I guess that's, you know, it's just something that we don't have in our county code beyond shoreland areas to regulate viewscapes. I know it's particularly a bigger issue out west, but it's just not something that we have in our county, and I don't think a lot of other counties around us have that either.
For a long time, and I know Matt or Tim tried to enforce it, that you couldn't put up an agriculture, you couldn't put up a building first. No, that's a lot. Forget it. Is there any other questions for Matt? That's just me talking now. Anybody got any questions for Matt on this one?
Mr. Chair, I got a comment, I guess. Yeah, that's Highway 10. And I mean, that's 22,000 cars a day going by there. That's got commercial written all over it. That whole frontage there. And, you know, commercial should be up along that road. And he's got a nice road too, his storage units. And I admit, you know, it could be a Honda dealership. It could be, you know, outlet recreation. I mean, it's commercial. And, yeah, I would have no problem with, you know, that big building behind, you know, they're still up by the highway. You know, if 5, 10, 15 years down the road, if that became a commercial, you know, rented out to the public, it matches, it's up by the highway. The houses, you know, I feel for them, I mean, but they got 22,000 cars running by their front yard every day. It's not a place where I would want to have a residential house. I'd rather be behind the commercial. So, and this matches the other one. I mean, this is a green light as far as I'm concerned.
And Mr. Chair, Mark, I guess a map that I don't have on there, but it's in your staff report, is it shows, maybe I can actually pull it up here. Here we go. So this is the future land use map for the city of Hawley. And you can kind of see right here that they do have this all slated as commercial. And then, but around it, I think where that existing personal building is, they still have single family residential. That's kind of the zoning for that. But yeah, they're looking at commercial all the way down. Even if you were to look here.
Yeah, and where the red site is there,
They're even
that
looking.
red goes pretty deep.
Even past here, yep.
Yeah, I could see that whole thing being maybe quarter mile, the whole first quarter mile being all commercial if they could get their they've got so much going on in the west over there though. But I could see that someday getting filled in there too.
And I guess too, with the concern about depreciation and property values, just with the proximity of the commercial future land use from the city of Hawley, as they expand, it's quite possible that you're, as a property owner along Highway 10, you might, as a residential property owner, it's highly conceivable that you would get a really good deal or a really good value for your property if it was going to be developed commercially at some point, just because that highway frontage is pretty prime for commercial uses. But I can, on the flip side, see whereas if you were keeping it as a residential use, where there could be some concerns there.
Yeah, Mark lives down there. That building right at the turnout. There used to be a flower shop in there or something, didn't there?
Yeah, it still is.
It was right in here.
And
yeah.
Yep, right there.
Yeah, and in the past building, storage building, that frontage road, we authorized for that to go right through to Blossoms. There's no dead end. I think Mr. Matthews is being a good neighbor at this point, but we authorize that road to go, frontage road, go right through to, which is Mr. Matthews anyway, that Blossoms building.
Yeah,
So-
I think that was to the that was kind of the agreement that he would put that in there so they wouldn't have to go by his house. Because yes, he owns that, and they've got an easement to get into those houses. If I remember right.
Well, I think the first meeting we kind of had terminology like that, but we didn't have a right to dead end a road. That road goes, that frontage road goes all the way through to Blossoms, so if tomorrow he gravelled that up and put it in, that's his right, to my understanding, unless.
Yep, I think you're right.
Yep.
I think a lot of those trees could be taken out too, because I think that's you could see that line, they're not exact, but probably pretty close.
Yeah, to my knowledge, Scott Manthe owns that road, owns that property, but I guess he'll comment when he gets up.
Yeah. Should we move, do you get any other questions for Matt? Just keep moving here, and it's getting to be a long time in this. Looking at the computer screen. Anybody else have questions for Matt? Anybody on the board have questions for Matt? Okay, what is the applicant online? Is he, would the applicant like to speak?
He's in person, Mr. Chair.
Oh, he's in person, even better.
Really wanted to attend the previous public hearings on this because they're so interesting, so.
I like that.
Oh.
It's always interesting. Thanks, chair people and Matt and all his staff. Appreciate it. So in regard to the question about is that other building being used, I'm 51 years old and I haven't been storing my own equipment. It's been at my mother's building and my brother's building, and I figured it's about time to get my stuff out of their buildings and into my own building. And so right now there's a combine and tandem truck and a couple other pieces of equipment in there, and it would have been more equipment in there, but because of the late season building, I wasn't moving the diesel equipment down this direction. So I've got a combine sprayer, tractor, trucks, trailers, scrapers, diggers, you name it, and that all is planning on going into that shed. So that's what the purpose of that is. And regarding the road, so I actually own my wife and I own the Blossoms building, and as part of the auditor's lot 24, we do own in front of those houses there, because the gentleman owned the property that I purchased from. His relatives, Alvin, who had the pit and the gravel business, they had sold off these lots as people came to request those pieces of land from them, and he gave an easement to the 2 lots that are up front there, and he retained that ownership of that land. So when I purchased the land, the abstractor did the mapped out what land I owned as part of that auditor's lot 24, and that goes up in front of Blossoms as part of my ownership. And so to me, there was some question of whether I go through there or not, and I don't know how they can restrict me to use my own land to access my other property that I have. To me, I haven't used it just because I didn't want to create waves. When I built the original storage building, rather than building a building that was 2-sided with lights on both sides and lights facing the neighbors, I built a 1-sided building and turned the lights away from the neighbors so that it wouldn't be less intrusive on them. And so I tried to be a good neighbor, and in turn they turned around and let me not use my own road and forced me to build the road along Highway 10, which I ultimately did. So now I've built the farm building because I had to build the existing road there, and with the cost of building the road and the gravel and all those things, it just works out to be the easiest and the best level surface to build the buildings right up in that area and not have to deal with any water issues, because the water drains out to the northwest corner, as Matt mentioned. And so that's about all I had. And just to comment on the trees, the neighbor immediately to the east of the property, they have a lot of brush or bushes where you can't hardly see the house from. When I was working on clearing the site for the farm shop, you can't hardly see the house through the bushes. And so they've got a lot of tree cover there that you maybe can't see when this picture was taken. And regarding the property values, the property just to the east of the Samuelsons, that was sold for about $259,000, and that would be a lot more than assessed value. I think it was assessed at $160,000. And that was after the storage building was built, the first one. So if anybody else has any questions, I'd be glad to address those.
I got to say, thanks for your comments. And I do remember I was here when you did that, and I think you have been a good neighbor. And for that, you should be commended, because that was a discussion about coming across there. So I would say that you have been more than a good neighbor there. Anybody have a questions for the applicant? Is there anybody in the public that wants to speak for or against the proposal? Anybody in the audience for or against the proposal?
This is Lori and Greg Kraus, if we may have a moment.
Yes.
We live on the hill overlooking Holly to the west. Our neighborhood is small residential surrounded by ag, as it's been for over 50 years. And it appears that the plan is that that's going to be changing. And while that is not happening now, it probably will someday, as you said, but that is not the case today. And we do have some trust issues with the direction that these buildings are taking. The placement of the one in question tonight does not directly affect us. But the direction this is taking begs the question, you know, what is the total end here? Is it to get that all commercial up there? You know, now instead of seeing, we don't overlook Holly anymore. We stare at the backside of a 40 by 240 steel building. And I totally respect a person's right to do with their land as they wish. But when you have neighbors, it doesn't hurt to take some of these questions into account, and I appreciate being heard. I'm just wondering a few things. I am wondering if there is a limit to the number of special use permits that he can apply for in land that's ag zoned. That's one of 4 questions I have, by the way.
Are you moving now?
So, Mr. Chair, I can answer that question. In a agriculturally zoned area in ag general, a landowner can apply for as many conditional use permits. There's no limit on it. They just have to fit. They have to be allowed uses in that zoning district, and most of the uses have to be compatible with agriculture to some extent. There are some additional things like storage that are permitted as conditional uses as well. So in this instance, I guess the answer is yes, you could technically do that. They would just have to be the uses that would be permitted in that zoning district. And just a comment on the City of Holly's future land use plan. It's probably a 20-year plan.
Right.
Who knows if it'll happen in 20 years or not? I guess it's all dependent on a number of factors. A lot of them are developer-led, but that's basically when they look at their extraterritorial area outside their city and looking at how they're going to grow in the future. That's kind of how they have identified that area for commercial growth. But I mean, it would take.
Well, and
Yep.
that's all good and well, but I think it's okay to remember that that is a possibly 20 years down the road thing. Those commercial buildings in my backyard do not increase the value of my property from my view at all, but it is his land and I know he can do with it what he wants. But it not only changed our view, it changed our neighborhood as well. And the only other thing that I will ask is, what do you consider reasonable construction hours? Because the hours of the last building he built were even after I go to bed, and I'm a night owl.
So we don't set any standards for construction hours. That's something that I can look into and see if there are standards for that. I know cities might have an ordinance for construction hours. We set use-specific standards, so it really depends on the use in terms of building a building or a house, or a storage building. We don't have any standards in our code that say you can only operate and through certain hours of the night. But that being said, that after certain, I'm thinking of like Minnesota has noise standards, for example, and if you exceed those standards at nighttime in a in your area on your property, if the construction was going over a specific decibel standard, for example, that would be in violation with the state of Minnesota noise standard laws.
And I can say that to point out that, he may do great things for that hill someday from a commercial standpoint. And I'm totally accepting of that. But like you said, we have 22,000 cars going past our house every day, and it was still louder and late at night. And so I just want to put a curve on the old good neighbor thing, because it does go both ways. And we try to be accepting, we try to be good neighbors. But I think some of the placement of this and some of the planning of this, when you look at where his house is and where his storage building is, some of these things don't really make a lot of sense. They do not mesh well with me. I appreciate being heard.
Tell me you're not in favor of the building.
I am not in favor of continued steel buildings being put up on that hill. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that wants to speak for or against the proposal?
I can't believe there's no one else there.
Anybody else for or against? Anybody else have any questions for Matt or the applicant? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
And Dust moves to close the public hearing.
Ezra second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Kurt?
Aye.
Ezra?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Joel?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. Let's dig out our facts and findings. Okay. In granting a conditional use permit, the planning commission shall consider the effect of the proposed use upon the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of occupants of surrounding lands, existing and anticipated land uses, traffic conditions, including parking facilities on adjacent streets and land, and the effect on agricultural usage and values of property and scenic views in surrounding areas, and the effect of the proposed use on existing comprehensive plans. Conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, and not substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity. Establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant properties for uses predominant in the area. Adequate measures have been taken or will be taken to provide utilities, access roads, drainage, off-street parking, and loading spaces. Nuisance conditions, adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent, control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, vibration, water pollution, and soil erosion so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other signs in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. The use will not create an excessive burden on parks, schools, streets, water supplies, sewers, and other public utilities and facilities which serve or are proposed to serve the area. The use will be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent agricultural zoned or used lands so that the existing homes will not depreciate in value, and there will be no deterrence to agricultural use of said land. The structure and site shall have an appearance that will not have an adverse effect upon adjacent residential properties. The use is, in the opinion of the Planning Commission, reasonably related to the overall needs of the district and to the existing land use. In the case of floodplain areas, the proof that the location is necessary for facility operation and that alternative sites not susceptible to flooding are not available. The use is consistent with the purposes of this ordinance and the purposes in the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan, if any, of the township or city or county. The use will not cause traffic hazards or congestion, and in floodplain areas has access during flooding or ordinary emergency vehicles. Existing businesses nearby will not be adversely affected because of curtailment of customer trade brought about by intrusion of noise, glare, and general unsightliness. Any comments? People, anybody got any comments or discussion here?
So, Mr. Chair, just to address maybe the noise during construction, if this is approved, the state would consider, I guess, a noise standard from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I highly doubt, Erica and I have done probably more noise tests in the past few months than we've ever done in our lives, so we're pretty familiar with what things sound like. I would doubt that a construction during those hours would pass any noise test that we would do and would be in violation of the state noise standards from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So it might be worth, that could either be honestly, it doesn't have to be a condition of this use permit, but if this use permit is approved and a building permit is applied for, it could be a condition of the building permit.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Anybody else have any comments or discussion?
Mr. Chair, if we're at the point of approval, I would certainly make a motion to approve with the staff recommendations.
I'll
Thank you,
second
Jenny.
it.
This is Joel, I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion to approve it and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Kurt?
Aye.
Ezra?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Joel?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Thank you, everybody. What's next on our agenda? Unfinished business. Matt has some comments apparently about the Clay County Comprehensive Plan update.
Yeah, and if Adam is still on, I can turn it over to him. Yep, looks like he's there.
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, I'll try to. Share my screen here.
Did we wake you up?
I had a cup of coffee, so that's helped. Are you seeing my screen yet or no?
No, I think you requested control, so you are, let's see here.
There.
There we go.
Apologies for that. So, thank you for your time here tonight. Just have a quick update on the work we've done over the last month for the comprehensive plan. Let's see here. Back in March, we had our first community engagement meetings. These meetings were virtual. We had about 66 people attend one of the two sessions that we had. The meetings really focused on just listening to the community, jotting down different issues and opportunities that they had related to themes such as housing, transportation, business needs, agriculture and food systems, and natural resources and recreation. I think we exceeded the expectations, the feedback we received. We had only scheduled an hour for each meeting, and I think we ended up going over by about 10 to 15 minutes for both the afternoon and evening meeting that we had. So overall, pretty happy with those, and really received a wealth of information that will go a long ways in informing the comprehensive plan. With the community input survey, that was scheduled to close last week, but we decided to extend that just one more week here to this Friday. We're seeing a lot of great responses about what people enjoy about Clay County and what they see as its strengths and challenges. And originally we were thinking to maybe delve a bit deeper into those responses tonight, but I think we'll probably wait until next month and take a closer look at those. We've also scheduled a series of about 10 personnel meetings starting tomorrow and going through next Wednesday. These are all informal, just a chance to hear from different individuals and departments about what's working well, if there are certain programs or services that they find especially valuable, and if there's any issues or concerns they're hearing in their day-to-day interactions with the public. And then last on the list, we have 5 additional focus groups that we've identified that we're looking to meet with. These are in addition to the outreach efforts we've done with the cities and townships so far. We've reached out to our conservation group, which includes Buffalo, Red River, and Wild Rice watershed districts, Soil and Water Conservation District, the Nature Conservancy, River Keepers, and Audubon, Dakota, and looking to schedule the other groups later this week or early next. So that's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Adam. I just want to encourage folks, especially folks who live out in our townships, to really just kind of spread the word, get folks to take that public input survey if you can. That'd be great. And if you have not taken it yet, it would be really, really valuable for you all to take it as well if you haven't. We're getting a lot of really good feedback and a lot of good input, and it'll be exciting and probably challenging to kind of put it all together into something meaningful. So Thank you, Adam.
I got one comment for Adam. I threw this at Matt this afternoon too. As long as you're talking to Nature Conservancy, why don't you suggest they get 2 or 3 buffalo and have them roam out there on their prairie? That would look really kind of neat. That's it.
We'll take that comment into consideration.
It really would be kind of neat though, but they need fencing.
Be a good tourist attraction.
It would be. You bet it would be.
And good eating.
Plus, they would serve a purpose. Maybe get rid of some of that brush too. But anyway, anything else, Matt, under old business?
Nope, I just want a Beisenberger now. That's about it. So.
Oh, okay. Kind of late to beat, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Heartburn tonight, Heartburn City. It happens when you get older, maybe. New business? Anything under new? Anybody?
I don't have anything, Mr. Chair. Well,
Sounds
actually,
good.
one thing. Just a reminder that our June meeting, because of the Board of Equalization, I'll make this announcement next month too. But our June meeting is June 4th Tuesday instead of the 3rd Tuesday. Oh, and one other thing too that I found out this morning, the City of Sterling, the Spring Prairie Hydrite Brethren petition for incorporation there's an order for dismissal of that petition by a Minnesota administrative law judge. That decision came this morning. So as of right now, there will not be a Sterling. I don't know if they could probably appeal that. But I don't know if that's the direction they're going to take.
Not enough population? Is that the deal?
No, they don't have anything platted into lots and blocks, and it's pretty clear in the statute that you need that. The trouble for them is the county standards for platting as subdivisions are obviously for rural areas and not for creating a city. So if they really couldn't, it's kind of a catch-22. They need to be platted in lots and blocks, but they really can't per our county code in a way that would make sense for a municipality. That was kind of the big thing. Also, there was some comments in the memorandum that the judge sent out about their size and how a lot of it was just undeveloped ag land. And I think she took some issues with that too.
Just unrelated, I was looking at Tribune here, and they're incorporating a city just east of Prior Lake. The county just east of Prior Lake down there was just being incorporated. So I kind of wondered if what happened to this one.
Yeah, and that's, I think, more common. This is definitely more common around the Twin Cities, where you'll have townships that will incorporate, but it's just because that they have enough suburban development or residential subdevelopments that have happened that they can kind of meet the criteria or the standards for incorporation.
Okay. Anything else, Matt?
That's it, unless anyone else has anything.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So I'll move,
No,
Ezra.
no.
Second. Jenny got it.
I heard Jenny say she would motion. Somebody seconded it. Who was that?
Ezra.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Kurt? Ezra?
Too excited.
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Jenny?
Hi.
Steve?
Aye.
Joel?
Aye.
Kurt? Maybe he's gone. Steve?
Aye.
Thank you, folks. It's been a long one, and it sounds like everybody's kind of tired. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Bill. Good job.
Good night.
Jenny, bye.
Good night.
Good night.